The first Pokemon games had an almost impossible task to overcome. How do we make a set of engaging boss fights for the player that work in tandem with the fantasy of going on this grand adventure and becoming the best Pokemon trainer in the world? And what the game designers created to solve that problem was simply ingenious. Gym leaders, a set of thematically rich characters in the setting whose job it was to act as the milestone for the players and their skill level. They could be implemented into the story seamlessly, as well as their typing speciality would make for an amazing test of the game mechanic knowledge while further adding flavor text to the world and characters. Questions like, why did this gym leader choose that typing, or what was their big deal and philosophy on life? All of this created some of the most iconic and appealing characters in video games, and in this series, I'm going to analyze all of them from a character writing and design point of view. And no, this is not just an excuse for me to talk about the hot ones, okay? By the way, this design analysis will be mainly focused on the Fire Red and Leaf Green games. So without further ado, ready your hats, get your favorite starter Pokemon, and let's get started. Brock, the very first boss fight in all of Pokemon. His name is a very easy pun, with it just being B in front of Rock. You'll see that these early gym leaders have names that are very on the nose. It makes sense as these games are mainly targeted towards kids, and as a designer, you want them to get the general idea of what Pokemon types these people have, just from a glance at their character design and name alone. That's why so many of these early gym leaders have very obvious yet striking character designs. It's a very effective way of getting the point across, in my opinion. And I also feel like Rock type is an excellent type to start off the first ever gym in Pokemon with, because it's a type that's weak to 2 of the first starter Pokemon's typings, that being Bulbasaur and Squirtle, making it so that the player is more likely to have a super effective advantage at the very first real boss fight of this franchise. It builds a natural dynamic difficulty that's simply brilliant, unless you chose Charizard, in which you're shit out of luck. I just wanted to get this out of the way real quick, that all of the gym leaders' designs are brilliant in these games. Like, the artist at Game Freak absolutely killed the 2D artwork for most of the human characters in this franchise, and it shows. For this first gym leader, Brock, in most of his appearances, he has this gruff, rock climber-esque attire on, heavy-duty gear that looks worn and practical, all with dark grays, greens, and browns, to really get across that aesthetic. In terms of his personality, Brock is a very stoic and steadfast man, recognizing the importance of taking care of his family while maintaining the responsibility of running a gym. His team consists of a simple Geodude and Onix, both of which are bulky defensively, but in terms of offense, shouldn't be too much for the player to overcome. Really, the point of this first gym is to just sell the importance of hitting the opponent's Pokemon with super effective type moves, and that's really all it needed to be. No need for VGC level insights just yet. Although his Onix does have Rock Tomb, for any of those early route bird Pokemon that most people will want to catch, they're in for an unpleasant surprise. He gives the trainer the Boulder Badge and the TM Bide for winning, which might seem odd for a Rock-type gym leader, but that actually makes a lot of sense because the Rock type in Pokemon is designed as defensive typing. I'm going on a bit of a tangent. For those of you who do not know, Pokemon does this brilliant thing where certain types not only have their own super effective and non-effective advantages, but they actually are suited to different playstyles specifically. Types like Fire, Fighting, and Ice are super overpowered offensively, often hitting many types for super effective damage, but defensively, these types are often vulnerable to just the slightest bit of super effective damage. That's why you'll see many of these types of Pokemon often serving as the sweepers of the team, while stuff like Steel, Rock, and Ground type want to play more defensively typically, and it gets even more detailed with how some types like Grass favor status and support moves in battle, Flying and Electric are more speedy and set-up playstyles. Look, the point is, Bide subtly reinforces this motif with the Rock type, as it's a move that works by sacrificing 2 turns of inactivity in order to land a devastating 3-turn attack after your Pokemon tanks the first 2, reinforcing that idea with Rock types. A really nice but subtle bit of game design. I really feel like I'm wasting far too much time on Brock here, so I'll have to move on. Pewter, by the way, is the city that you actually fight Brock in, and fun fact, it's mostly used for cooking appliances. So I guess that's where he gets that motif from in the anime. How neat. Next up, we have Misty, the first water-type Pokemon gym leader, and I'm sure everyone's first crush. Her name and design is pretty on the nose, as she's a swimmer and her name is Mist, but one bit of design I found that was interesting is that she continues the trend of an early gym leader being weak to one of the starters. Only unlike Brock, this time she's only weak to one of the starter Pokemon, that being Bulbasaur. Again, brilliantly adding a layer of dynamic difficulty, as it subtly ups the challenge for newcomers of the franchise. Rip to anyone who used Charizard again. In terms of design, Misty has actually had quite the makeover in multiple years. In her original appearances, she simply wore a swimming bikini and sandals. A bit basic, but hey, they had to conserve space on those cartridges, man. In the Gold and Silver games and its remakes, she boasts a far more elaborate swimming outfit, one that looks fit for advanced diving rather than just simple poolside play. Her hair is also noticeably much longer and pointed, giving her a more mature look, which adds up given the fact that she actually has a romantic partner in the latter games. Finally, in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, she has a far less revealing outfit than in the past, opting for a simple midriff and shorts. I guess for all the redesigns in this game, they wanted to be a bit more toned down than in the past. I'm looking at you, Sabrina, with the whip. Onto her actual gym, Misty once again keeps it simple, with her Staryu and Starmie, both of which have the move Water Pulse, a move that has a chance to confuse the opponent. That paired with the fact that both of her Pokemon have the move Recover, and I couldn't help but notice that this is a smart and subtle way of introducing the player to status conditions. It punishes them for just mindlessly trying to spam super effective moves. That simple strategy won't work much against smarter opponents. The deliberate choice to have Misty introduce the element of statuses into the player's mind is a brilliant one, as not only does the player have to focus on moves that attack, but also on moves that don't. Recover is an annoying move that heals your Pokemon, so you'll need to make sure you don't get confused and waste a turn hitting yourself in order to have a chance for her to heal. It's all really clever. In terms of personality, Misty is a go-getter, often boisterous character, portrayed as a confident and excited in everything she does. She often notes how much she wants to explore the region and see much more out in the world, a goal she does in the anime ironically enough. After you defeat her, she gives you the Cascade badge and Bubble Beam in the original Red and Blue, but in Yellow onward, she gives you Water Pulse, a much more useful and better move. And that ends it for the very first Water-type gym leader of the Pokemon franchise. Next up, we have Surge. Surge is the first gym leader whose type speciality isn't weak to one of your starters. This again, upping the ante in a cool and organic way for the player. By this point, they should be familiarized with the importance of type effectiveness in battle, and now have to fight a type with only one weakness in the ground typing. The training wheels are starting to come off. Surge himself is a pretty cool and underrated character. He has a simple but striking figure, with his giant 8-foot-tall self fitting nicely into that army uniform. He looks a lot like Guile from Street Fighter, with his blonde hair and muscular build, though he does bring up some uncomfortable questions about the Pokemon world and its world building. He apparently is the veteran of some past war, but what kind of war? Was it the one like AZ had in X and Y with millions of dead people in Pokemon? Was it just a casual training regiment? Did they do a peaceful invasion of a neighboring country in order to liberate them? Okay, I promise from here on out, I'll be a lot more focused, I swear. Surge's team consists of 3 Pokemon this time, adding to the difficulty. Raichu and Pikachu know Thunder Wave this time around, a nasty status move that guarantees paralysis if it hits. The status moves are no longer an abstract variable to consider, like Water Pulse's Confusion. They are now an active threat in battle that the player will have to consider. The use of Double Team coming out from these two is obnoxious though, as it most likely will outspeed any of your Pokemon at this point in the game, and it's just a genuinely broken move, with you being able to avoid all of your opponent's attacks. In terms of personality, Surge is a pretty bold and gutsy character. Having actually saved one of the trainers in his gym, he's known to like trainers that display a lot of guts. A real respectable guy, I must say. Moving on to Erica, one of the more forgettable gym leaders in all of Kanto. Not to say she's bad by any means, just a tad bit generic with her design, that being of a simple kimono girl, and her name being a pretty common one in Japan. For her team, she also features 3 Pokemon like Surge, but all of her Pokemon have status affecting moves, and they're not just the simple ones like Paralysis now. No, these Pokemon can now poison, paralyze, and put you to sleep if you're not careful. On top of that, she has a ton of healing moves on her Pokemon, like Ingrain and Giga Drain, which pairs nicely with Constrict to make sure your now afflicted Pokemon can no longer leave battle. Yeah, she may look soft and delicate, but she's not pulling any punches with her team composition. She is fully intent on stalling you out with a slow, poisonous death. Erica is the first gym battle in the game where I'd say that actual battle synergy comes into play. The player knows about type matchups, they know about status effects and status conditions, so now Erica is the first gym that finally puts it all together. This is the halfway point in the game after all, so the player needs to start preparing more for tough battles. As for Erica herself, she's a pretty quiet and reserved girl, often prone to dozing off, fitting for the type of move she uses. She's a botanist that finds beauty in strange and weird Pokemon, and to me that just fits so well with the grass typing, as it's a very on-the-surface weak type that is deceptively complex and powerful with its status and support affecting moves. She gives you the Rainbow Badge and Giga Drain for beating her, but yeah, nothing much more to say about her gym, just a really solid one. Although I will say, as pointed out by others, the creepy old guy that stands outside of her gym, gawking at the pretty woman inside, and that's slowly being censored over time, is a funny little detail that these games have. Koga. Being the poison type gym leader of this game, Koga has the move Toxic on all of his Pokemon, by far the most volatile status move in the game, as it not only drains your Pokemon's HP slowly over time, but actually multiplies each turn, stacking the damage. And since poison types can't miss with Toxic, the player is in for a horrible time if they don't have a game plan going in. Especially because he has stalling moves like Minimize and Smokescreen to lower the accuracy and evasion of his team, really let that slow poison do its damage. On top of that, Koga is the first gym leader in the game that holds full heals and hyper potions to heal back the damage done to his Pokemon. At this point, the player should already know that they can heal their Pokemon in battle, but allowing what's essentially the boss battles of these games to do the same is just straight up diabolical. In terms of personality, he's not just a skilled ninja that has trained multiple pupils, but he actually is the master of both poison and medicine making, a nice detail that adds depth to his character. He not only specializes in swiftly taking life, but also restoring it. That's pretty cool. Upon defeating him, you get the Soul Badge and the Team for Toxic, one of the best moves in all of Pokemon. So safe to say, beating him is definitely worth it. On to easily my favorite gym leader in all of Kanto, and one of the fan favorites of the entire franchise, Sabrina. She's just such an interesting and compelling character, and that is in no part due to her iconic portrayal as the scary witch lady in the anime and her amazingly written arc in the manga, where she's just straight up a menace, man. But I'm getting ahead of myself. For her team, she wields by far the most overpowered type in the game with Psychic, and her Pokemon all have that move, with high special attack stats to boot. And a freaking baton pass setup with Mr. Mime that has Calm Mind and Barrier to set up for sweeps? Yeah, there's a reason why Sabrina is so notorious in both gym difficulty and character. She's just a force to be reckoned with. At this point in the game, the player will have to use every advantage at their disposal in order to win. The Gassy they got from Lavender Town, the Toxic TM they just got from Koga, their own crafted Pokemon strategy, everything. Sabrina basically has no weakness outside of just playing better than her, due to the fact that bug types were hilariously weak in Gen 1, and that weird glitch that made ghost types weak to Psychic. Her personality is that of an often reserved but quietly vicious woman. It's said that she made her gym in Saffron City by simply pile driving the previous Psychic gym leader that was once here, and straight up curb stomping the fighting gym so badly that it became a generic dojo. Keep in mind, she's stated on numerous occasions that she hates Pokemon battling and pretty much does anything to try to avoid it, which makes it all the more terrifying just how good at it she is. Talk about a flex. It's just so fun seeing how this character has been interpreted in both the anime, games, and manga. Sabrina is such an interesting character because she can simultaneously be this misunderstood tragic figure, or this absolutely crazy force of nature that inspires terror and fear in all of her foes. And her character design, no matter which iteration of it you see, can support both of these two viewpoints. And that to me is just brilliant, from a thematic writing standpoint and a game design perspective. For beating her, you get the TM for Psywave or Calm Mind, depending on which game you're playing. Lane is the Fire-type gym leader of Kanto, and for his team, it's just pure offense, baby. Mimicking what I said about types having specific playstyles earlier in the video, Fire is the offensive special attacking type, so it's fitting that Blaine's team would focus mainly on doing that just very well. It's a really good relief after so many previous gyms where you had to worry about status conditions, managing stat buffs and debuffs, making sure the gym leader isn't setting up for an easy sweep. Going back to the simple game of rock, paper, scissors, it has to be refreshing for the player. Although he still isn't a slouch, his Pokemon pack a serious punch, and the player will have to play smart in order to not lose. In terms of personality, I mean, he's the host of a freaking quiz show. Dude has to have a lighthearted and jovial personality. But his backstory of almost freezing to death on a treacherous mountain, but being saved by Moltres in his time of need, is a genuinely heartfelt and awesome story to hear. Blaine is just a fun character through and through, and he feels like a calm before the storm. The final gym leader, perhaps the most iconic in all of Kanto, besides Brock and Misty of course. After beating Blaine, he gives you the Volcano Badge alongside the TM for Fire Blast. A pretty reliable and super accurate move that I'm sure in no way will ever miss its target. The man, the myth, the legend himself, it's the leader of Team Rocket as the final gym leader of Kanto, Giovanni, by far one of the biggest menaces in the entire franchise. I just have to say that the build up to his gym is simply spectacular. You first get to the final gym, being seemingly closed, and the owner is nowhere to be found, only to realize that it's owned by the criminal mastermind of Team Rocket. You have to intervene in his attempt to take over Silvco, and after having trashed his evil team's operations and secret base, he flees to another hideout in Viridian City. Seeing as he's the final obstacle that stands in between you and becoming the champion, you hunt him down like a secret agent, and you and him have one last personal standoff. He has a pretty unorthodox type for a final villain too, with them having the ground typing as his theme. His team throws everything at you from the previous gyms, a poison status from his Nidoqueen, the physical powerhouse of his Nidoking and 2 Rhyhorns, and even a setup Pokemon with his quick Dugtrio. Overall, a pretty easy team to defeat in my opinion, low-key, but it's still a climactic final boss to finish off your journey. And with beating him, you get the Earth Badge alongside the TM for Fissure, which is one of the only moves in the game that's a one-hit KO. And with that, he pieces the F out without having to serve time for his various criminal acts, and the player has successfully completed all of the gym challenges in the game. And man, what an absolutely banger first impression. Every gym leader in Kanto was this memorable, larger-than-life character that made the world feel alive and vibrant. Their amazing designs in tandem with their elegant game design made them not only some pretty impressive boss fights, but some of the most iconic video game characters out there. And I'm sure that they'll only continue to get better as the games progress on. I can't wait to cover the rest of the ones in the series, but in the meantime, tell me, what are your favorite gym leaders from Kanto, as well as the future ones? I'm pretty curious in that, but with that, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time for part 2, where I cover the infamous and notorious Johto gym leaders. Okay, so Johto's gym leaders are quite notorious for a lot of reasons. They're severely underleveled, barely use any of the Pokemon in the region, and the general writing surrounding them leads to them being seen as whiny, overconfident, sniveling breath. Especially these 3 right here. But what if I told you that these gym leaders actually have more to them than meets the eye, and that they actually are a lot more complex than what people lead on, except for some of them are as bad as they seem. But I'm going to attempt to convince you that Johto's gym leaders are a lot more complex and compelling characters than what people lead on. I hope that you'll join me as I explore why Johto's gym leaders are actually way better written and designed than what people think. Enough with wasting your time, let's get this started, shall we? Okay, for the first gym leader of the Johto region, we have Falconer, whose name sounds a lot like Falconer, and who gives you the Zephyri badge. Zephyri being a shortening of Zephyrus, the Greek god of the west wind. So right off the bat, you see some common problems with the Johto gym leaders, and that is their Pokemon are way underleveled, like to the point where he's breaking the rules of Pokemon. Pidgeotto evolves at 18, yet he has one at level 9 somehow, more than half of the level it's supposed to be at. On top of that, there's just weird avoidance to use any of the Johto Pokemon for some reason, probably because most of the Johto Pokemon aren't that good. And you'll see a lot of the gym leaders in this region stick almost always with Kanto Pokemon instead. It's really bizarre, and definitely not a good design decision if you want to convince the player that the Johto Pokemon are any good. I forgot to mention at the beginning, but I'm going to use the Heart Gold and Soul Silver versions of Johto in order to analyze these gym leaders. The reason that's important is because in the original Gold and Silver, what you'll notice is that Falconer gives you the TM for Mudslap? A ground type move, something his type ignores. Well, you see, this is because the only flying type TM available at the time was Fly, as Roost wasn't a TM until Generation 4. So you only get the TM for Fly much later in the game because the game designers were like, oh shoot, we can't give the player this overpowered of a move just for the first gym leader. But the funniest part is that the character that actually does give you the TM for Fly is so out of place, just like Falconer is for Mudslap. Anyway, I'm spending way too much time on this. The thing that makes Falconer an interesting character is the amount of contradictions he has. He wants to be the best flying type Pokemon user, yet he has some of the weakest flying type Pokemon for his gym that aren't even his apparently, as he was talking about it coming from his father. That put on the fact that he always glamorizes his father and looks up to him, but he criticizes characters like Janine for doing the same exact thing. In this Pokegear conversation, he even chastises her and goes like she needs to be her own individual person, not recognizing the irony, not recognizing the obvious irony. Now I see why so many people want to ship them. And I think little tidbits like that add just a bit of depth to these characters that makes them so appealing. Most of the characters in this franchise have something like that if you just dig a little deeper, but it's time for me to move on. Bugsy, the first bug-type gym leader, and he's actually responsible for the weakest type in the franchise. You know, I was always confused as a kid whether or not he was a boy or a girl. I guess it was just something with his artwork. Anyway, like the last gym leader Faulkner, he is extraordinarily confident he'll beat you with the worst type in the game, and then get surprised when you beat his level 15 Metapod and Kakuna, who both have Poison Sting and Tackle respectively. Yeah, this is what I was talking about the overconfidence issue these people have. The thing is, Bugsy isn't even that bad of a guy. Dude gets out a lot and actually goes to Viridian Forest whenever he's on his off time from being a gym leader. He has this fascinating obsession with bug Pokemon that's actually pretty engaging to witness. He talks about things he's noticed, such as how people favor bug Pokemon when they're younger, but as they get older, bug Pokemon start seeming less and less cool over time, probably due to their weak nature and uncool designs. He recognizes that Bug isn't a strong type and that he's one of the weaker gym leaders, and that's what makes him such a fun person to listen to. He stays positive and optimistic even when he's losing because of the odds stacked against him. He's a fun-going, nature-loving Poke nerd with a great personality. I was honestly surprised with how much I liked this character upon further analysis. He gives you the Hive Badge alongside the TM for Fury Cutter, a move he actually discovered himself. How neat. Okay, we got to her finally. The gym leader everyone sees in their top 10 most hated characters list. Here we have Whitney, the normal type gym leader of Goldenrod City. Now, I know, everyone's going to say it. She cries after she loses her gym battle. Her milk tank is annoying, with rollout, milk drink, and attract just to be extra obnoxious. And its move Stomp has a chance of paralyzing. It's like they crafted milk tank to be the ultimate rage bait Pokemon. But I'm actually going to play some defense for our girl Whitney over here. Her name and personality, alongside her character design, all screams of one very negative stereotype regarding white women. She's a bimbo. That's what her character archetype is. The ditzy girl with large... You know what it is. And often girls attributed to this label are seen as shallow, lacking in any intelligence, or just being incredibly worthless in the worst of cases. And I know you wouldn't guess this from the way Whitney acts, but her breakdown after losing to you actually says a lot about her character. She says she became a Pokemon trainer just because it was the popular thing to do, but I actually think that was a front. Girls like her often get bullied for not conforming to the right social standards, so I have a sneaking suspicion that her being into Pokemon battling would not acclimate her to positive social interactions. Stack that with the fact that her mother apparently is a renowned DJ and TV reporter, and the sheer pressure that Whitney must be facing to be the standout star of a girl must simply be insurmountable. And viewed through that lens, it makes so much more sense why she cries after losing. You essentially took away the only thing that gave her value in life. She has all this surface level feminine and girly things to her aesthetic, like the fact that she gives you the TM for Attract, and all of her Pokemon are female, but deep down, she knows her real passion is for Pokemon battling. And that makes sense given her overly tomboyish character design, and also the fact that she's a fan of softball apparently. Or I could just be looking into things way too deeply. I don't know. You guys tell me what you think of Whitney. To me personally, she's easily the best gym leader in all of Johto, but I can see why her character is so infamous if you don't try to understand her character. On to the next gym leader I'm not going to spend nearly as much time on. We have Morty, and first off, geez dude, you don't have any Johto Pokemon, Christ! That's especially egregious when you're in the Johto region and have access to Misdreavus, one of the best Ghost-type Pokemon of all time, simply inexcusable. But yeah, on to Morty himself, he's not really that interesting of a character I must say. His whole deal is that he's obsessed with the legendary dogs of this region, that being Entei and literally nothing else. He actually dislikes Suicune, which is funny because of his friend Eugene over here is the opposite, who absolutely loves that Pokemon. His dream is to one day find and maybe catch the legendary bird Ho-Oh. as he's enamored with it and thinks it's a bringer of good fortune. What's cool is that he studies the legendary Pokemons and myths, such as the one about the Pokemon dying in that giant tower and then being revived as the legendary dogs, which people still to this day think it was 3 Eevees. But yeah, he gives you the Fog Badge and the TM for Shadow Ball, a really good move. It's a shame that only 4 Pokemon up until this point can actually use the move with Stab. Seriously, Game Freak just wasn't a fan of Ghost Pokemon, I swear. On to Jasmine, and it was at this point that I started to realize, dang, Pokemon in its writing actually has some depth to it. I mean, here you have this shy, compassionate, delicate girl, Jasmine, representing the most tough, defensive, and strong-willed type in the game, Steel type. Literally the type with the most resistances in the entire game. That right there, that's what you call thematic storytelling. It could have been so easy to have a big and gruff man with giant muscles and metal armaments to represent the first Steel-type gym leader, but no, we have Jasmine instead. This quiet, reserved girl with the giant metallic Steelix on her side. It sends the message that being strong, being a Steel type, isn't just about physical strength, but about resilience and iron will. Jasmine is an obviously shy and reserved girl, yet has a job that routinely places her with other people that she has to interact with every single day. And it's not an accident, she chooses to do this. That paired with the fact that she genuinely just loves Pokemon from the depths of her heart. I mean, Jasmine will literally not fight you until you help her save this poor Ampharos, which she calls Amphi. That's so adorable. And it literally only trusts her to give it the medicine. I mean, there's a reason that out of all of the gym leaders, absolutely no one complains about Jasmine in these Gold and Silver games. And that's because she's pretty hard to hate. I mean, you would have to be an absolute monster to dislike her character. Easily my second favorite gym leader in Johto. For the next gym leader, he's almost the exact opposite of all the things I said about Jasmine. Hey guys, for our fighting type gym leader, let's have him be this giant, burly, muscular dude. I'm pretty sure that won't be too on the nose. Oh, who am I kidding? The first water type gym leader was literally a swimmer. But yeah, the most interesting thing about Chuck is that he's apparently a wife neglector. As it said, he's happily married to her, but he rarely spends any time with her due to him being in the gym all day. And not just for gym battles, I mean he's just working out constantly and even tries to intimidate people with that fact. All of his Pokemon are not from Johto again, by the way. Also, remember what I was saying earlier about the hilarious fact that Faulkner doesn't give you any flying TM? Well, it's actually Chuck and his gym that gives you the TM for Fly, one of the only 2 types at this point in the game that fighting is weak to. I mean, geez, I thought they were trying to be ironic or something, but no, they just start giving you the weaknesses to their types. I remember when TMs used to mean something, man. But yeah, Chuck isn't nearly as interesting as the other gym leaders in my opinion, and that goes doubly for the next one on this list. Oh, Price. The actual worst gym leader of this region. I don't see him get nearly as much flack as Whitney does, and it's a shame. This dude is absolutely uninspired. Pokemon is pretty notorious for its bad Ice-type gym leaders, but Price just takes it to another level. I mean, first of all, his name just being Ice with Price, really. And his character design, man, I mean, they didn't even bother. He literally looks like a generic old man trainer sprite. And then they just decided to give him a white scarf and winter coat in the remakes and called it a day. And they could have done so much more interesting stuff with him. I mean, he's said to be the oldest gym leader in all of the games. Apparently, he's been training for 50 years his entire life, saying he's been training before the trainer was even born. But yet he chooses one of the worst typings in the entire game at this point, that being Ice type, and his strategies aren't even that novel or creative. I guess his Seal's use of Rest into Store combo is pretty cool, but other than that, bro has absolutely no sauce. So much potential wasted, man. But hey, we can't all be winners. Before we get to the final gym leader, I want to give a little mention to Janine, the new Kanto Poison-type gym leader. Even though she's not a part of Johto's gym leader lineup, she still is technically a new gym leader for the games. What I find so fascinating about her character is what it says about the world building of Pokemon. It was a genuine surprise to most players, being able to explore to the Kanto region in both Gold and Silver, and Janine's existence shows just the amount of thought the game designers put into this decision, as it's not the same as it was before. The gym leaders have grown up now. Misty looks different, Koga has elevated to the status of Elite Four member, and overall, it shows that the Pokemon world is a living and breathing one. As for Janine herself, I was actually pretty enamored with her character as a kid. I absolutely love her character design and how it mimics Koga's, but way more sleek and refined. In terms of personality, like I said before with Faulkner, she really admires her father and hopes one day to surpass him. although she is noticeably annoyed that people don't take her as seriously as Koga, due to her being, you know, a girl and all, even though I think her team is way more refined and threatening than Koga's. There's even this running gag with her that people think she's always wearing disguises, even when she's just wearing average everyday clothing. But yeah, she's a wonderful character addition, and it's cool to see them adding more characters for world building detail. And last but certainly not least, we have Claire, the first Dragon-type gym leader of the franchise. And oh boy, she's another infamous gym leader for doing the whole "you beat me fair and square, but I'm still going to deny you the badge" gimmick they had going on in Gen 2. Although unlike Whitney, who had her crash out due to insecurity, Claire simply has her crash out due to an overinflated ego. She proudly proclaims that she's the best Dragon-type Pokemon trainer that there ever is, despite Lance existing in the same region and being promoted to champion. She's the most overconfident of all the overconfident gym leaders in this region, but she gets way less of an excuse because she's a grown woman acting like this. I mean, she even does the whole "there's no way you could defeat me" and forces you to do a dumb puzzle after the battle. She even taunts you if you talk to her without you completing the challenge, like come on, grow up, woman. But after all that, she's pretty chill for the most part. She seems to concede defeat and go, alright, I'm not as good as I thought I was. A very funny thing she has going on in Johto is how everyone comments on her outfit, and she seems to notice how her outfit is a tad bit ridiculous for how it looks. I mean, there's the joke that Silver slut shames her in the tower when you're trying to do a double battle, which is a pretty hilarious read of the conversation, I'm not gonna lie. And if you have a conversation with her on the Pokegear, she talks about how there apparently seems to be some gossip running around about her, how she's the latest name in fashion to some people. Even a radio station seemingly wanted to do a talk piece on her. But yeah, Claire seems to be a pretty abrasive at first character that slowly mellows out over time. Definitely odd that she's the final gym leader in this region. But with that, I hope you've enjoyed my deep exploration of the Johto gym leaders. I know I couldn't convince everyone, and they're certainly not as good as the iconic 8 in the first generation, but man, there's just some charm to these gym leaders that I feel like is overlooked most of the time. They all have such interesting and eccentric personalities, it's just hard to not find some of them lovable. I know the writing in these games aren't Shakespeare or anything, but man, there's just something extremely satisfying with dissecting these appealing characters and seeing what makes them tick. I will definitely enjoy doing that going forward as we go into the next region, Hoenn, what many consider to be the best set of Pokemon games ever created. Hoenn's gym leaders are widely regarded to be some of the best in the franchise. Hell, I'd even say they have some of the best character designs in video games, period. While the previous generation often had their characters with striking and bold designs, Game Freak just takes it to the next level for Hoenn, man. Seems like they wanted to up the ante and make their characters more in-your-face and expressive than all of the previous gym leaders combined. And in that respect, I definitely think they succeeded. So let me stop wasting all your guys' time, and let's just jump into it. Roxanne, the first gym leader in Hoenn, and I'm surprised it took Game Freak this long to do the whole schoolgirl moe character archetype of one of their leaders. And she fits the stereotype perfectly, with the Mary Jane shoes and poofy dress she has on. I'm honestly curious which designs people think are better, the originals or the remakes that were in ORAS. I definitely prefer the redesigns, personally speaking. Roxanne is a particular case because she once again does the whole "I'm a super skilled trainer who's been training all my life to be the best Pokemon master, yet she mains one of the worst types in the game in Rock type." Seriously, what's this girl's obsession with rocks? You can find her near a Fossil Maniac's house, begging for one of the fossil Pokemon, to the point where she's even willing to do blackmail by giving him a badge in order to get it. Like, geez, she has some problems. In terms of team composition, she once again makes the mistake of using 2 Geodudes, and her Nosepass isn't really that threatening. I guess I should take the time to mention that a very popular idea for gym leaders in Pokemon is that they sort of self-balance themselves depending on the skill level of the person they're facing. So like if you have 5 badges, they're going to be a more tougher team than if you had like 1. And this idea was kind of popularized because of the animated series Pokemon Generations a while back, showcased the gym leaders doing this exact thing. The reason I mention this is because the idea showcases the gym leaders as an actual competent force in the world, and doesn't make them look like complete chumps that don't know how to use their own power system. Makes it so that characters like Roxanne maintain their intelligence while also still being a fair challenge early on. And me personally, I like this headcanon, even if it's not necessarily true, because Roxanne is a pretty interesting character as this really smart and savvy Pokemon trainer who's aware of all the intricacies of Pokemon battling, from type matchups to held items to even abilities. And viewed through this lens, Roxanne becomes a pretty cute and likable character, whose personality highlights the smart side of Pokemon battling through her book smarts and quick wit. There's a reason why people find her so likable, but alas, we must move on. Brawly is an interesting gym leader because he's the first one which I mistaked his type speciality for water. Now, this could just simply be to me being an idiot, but I saw it as Game Freak subtly changing the design archetypes for each of the gym leaders. No longer did they have the giant muscular guys as the default for fighting types, but instead, they could start getting a lot more creative. And Brawly is the first of those characters. Somebody who isn't just a gym bro, but actually likes to get out on the waves and surfs up and do all of that cool actiony stuff. That's another clever interpretation of the fighting type as something that's brave, bold, and courageous. It's also the first sign that gym leaders could have different hobbies beyond just Pokemon battling. His surfer and dude bro aesthetic fitting nicely with Hoenn's general adventurous feel. In terms of team composition, Brawly's not a slouch. The player will have to make sure they don't allow him to get off bulk ups and set up sweeps with each of his Pokemon. It's something they'll definitely have to look out for, as well as it introduces the concept of staff buffs quite nicely. But yeah, Brawly's just a super chill and nice dude. Definitely a great second gym leader. Watson, easily one of the most animated gym leaders in Hoenn. I could talk about his silly, jovial, manic energy,
or I could talk about his active investigation underdog for both the closure of New Mauville and C Mauville.
Just kidding. I'm sure that this old coot has absolutely zero skeletons hiding in his closet. No, but in all seriousness, Watson is like the jovial grandpa archetype for his character. Everyone refers to him as eccentric, yet he has a nice personality that's hard to hate. It's stated that he wanted to transform Mauville into this expansive energy empire, which now that I think about it, might have been what his actions were for C Mauville and the greater Mauville holdings. It's interesting that his plans initially failed in Pokemon Ruby and Emerald, but in the remakes of Oras, he actually succeeds, which is why the whole C Mauville project exists in the first place. Him still having this jovial personality, despite the baggage of his personal failure and loss, is actually pretty indicative of his character and shows how he never lets things get to him, no matter how dire situations feel. Although, come to think of it, he also fails at this project as C Mauville is eventually abandoned, as you see in the remnants of this area. In terms of team composition, he's also a pretty hard one to beat if you're not prepared. With Shockwave guaranteed to not miss, and Thunder Wave to paralyze all of your Pokemon guaranteed, he's actually quite the hard skill check early on. That is, of course, if you don't choose the best starter and best Pokemon of all time, Mudkip. Okay, all personal biases aside, Watson's a pretty solid gym leader. Seems like he gets mostly overlooked in this region, due in no small part to the next gym leader on this list I'm sure you all know. That's right, up next we have Flannery, the hottest gym leader from this region in both personality and design, of course. She's by far the most popular in the Hoenn region, for lots of reasons, but mainly due to her quite funny and engaging personality. She tries to overcompensate for her lack of experience in being a gym leader by trying to act all overly aggressive and domineering. That paired with her striking character design makes for an appealing character, what can I say? It's also nice how she comes to a self-reflection on her own that she should just be herself and trying to overcompensate. I mean, most people already probably respect her a ton anyway, given that she got to the status of gym leader, something of high prestige in this world I assume. That is a curious thing with the Hoenn region. It expands on the lore of how gym leaders are kind of inaugurated and set up in general. It was at this point in the stories that they started going from just the standard milestone test and started to become more ingrained as actual living parts of the world building. Something that gets even further bolstered with the next gym leader in Norman. But yeah, Flannery is a very interesting character. Love how her personality mirrors the typing of fire, a nervous but intense fury, a hot-headed but a bit insecure, perfect for the fire typing strong offense but slightly weak defense. Her team adds a nice spike in difficulty, with all of her Pokemon running Sunny Day, which boosts their fire type moves tenfold. It's also quite fascinating that despite Flannery's personality, most of her Pokemon are nice and slow, have chilled out, mellow personalities. It once again adds layered dimensionality to this character. Pretty sweet stuff. Okay, on to Norman, and can I just say, he is one of my least favorite gym leaders. Not because of his design and writing, but simply because this dude is a terrible father. I mean, essentially abandoning your child and wife in a new region just after y'all came back from an old one and leaving them to unpack everything all by themselves. I mean, he's not winning the Father of the Year award anytime soon, that's for sure. And if that wasn't already bad enough, dude does not hold back against his own child. I mean, look at his team. His slack off having a citrus berry, as well as its insanely overpowered stats, like it's a legendary Pokemon without the legendary status, and this gym leader is absolutely brutal to deal with. I mean, the Linoon having belly drum, this dude is just out for blood. And personally speaking, I found it even harder in the Oras remakes, where he has Retaliate, a base 140 move if the Pokemon in his team fainted previous rounds. But man, I just can't with this dude. I mean, he refuses to battle you before you get 5 gym badges as if it's a privilege to fight your own father. Like, jeez. And I know he's all doing it because he wants us to become better, like he's a very fundamentals type of person. But this guy is definitely harsh. In all seriousness though, I do really like Norman conceptually, as he's the first gym leader that Game Freak actually started tying into the story more. I mean, Norman is the first mention of a deliberate father figure in these games, and that's definitely a strong, bold choice for the new region. His character writing, alongside the importance of his relationship to the main character, shows Game Freak is not afraid to go into a more story-driven direction for the future games. And that's one of the many reasons why these games are so beloved, I think. Unlike the previous person, these next 2 gym leaders are hella interesting in my opinion, as they're my favorite in the entire region. That's right, we have Tate and Liza, the adorable psychic-type duo. Their character designs are nicely inspired by Chinese Shaolin monks, and for some reason, every piece of artwork they're in, they just seem to be posed so nicely that showcases their design and gimmicks perfectly. Oh man, I really just can't get over how well designed they are at selling their gimmick. They perfectly embody the psychic type by them finishing each other's synthesis and floating. They perfectly introduce the concept of double battles to Pokemon, with the fact that they have a Solrock and Lunastone to pair nicely with each other's twin motif. And even in that, they still get to remain unique individuals, with Tate having a far more stoic and serious personality, as opposed to Liza's more lighthearted and playful tone. It sends the message that even though they might be different from each other, they can still come together in harmony to form something beautiful. Man, everything about Tate and Liza is just perfect. From their posing in the artwork, to their color schemes and character design, to their brilliant Pokemon teams, which set up Light Screen and other status boosts to show the importance of synergy in double battles, to their fun and engaging personalities that just make them a treat to watch. Everything about Tate and Liza is just the perfection of Pokemon's design philosophy, how they integrate lore, character, aesthetic, and gameplay into a single cohesive package. Definitely the best gym leaders in Hoenn. On to Winona, and she is by far the most forgettable gym leader up until this point in my opinion. I do like how her character fits with the narrative of Earth, Wind, and Sky, as weather is a heavy focus in the Hoenn region. Most of her team has dual typing, which makes her a less predictable opponent than the other gym leaders. And her Altaria can be quite scary if you let her set up dragon dances. So she's definitely not a pushover. I don't know, I guess the reason I say she's so forgettable is because she doesn't have any interesting relationships outside of Pokemon battling. The coolest thing I could find about her is that she apparently taught some of the young trainers around her gym how to fight, but that's pretty much it. I will say though, Game Freak gets a lot better at making their flying type gym leaders more memorable. Yeah, there's not much more to say about Winona. She's by far the least realized gym leader in all of Hoenn in my opinion. Sorry to any Winona fans out there who she's a personal favorite of yours. Now for the next 2 gym leaders, Wallace and Hoenn, I actually find them quite interesting because they are both 2 brilliant interpretations of a single typing in the water typing. While you have Wallace, this very flamboyant, over-the-top, performer-esque gym leader, Hoenn also does the same aesthetic but in a more gentleman-like and fashionable design. In doing so, they both say something about the water type that can both be true at the same time. Water is both an extremely spectacular force of nature, but it's also this calm, serene, gentle force that can be nurtured into something more powerful. And this is both reflected in their respective team's ace. While Milotic is seen as one of the most beautiful Pokemon ever, far more bold and out there in terms of its design, perfect for Wallace, Kingdra is a far more foreboding and knightly appearance. With its typing of water and dragon, fancying itself as a far more sophisticated sea creature, deserving of high status and utmost respect. A perfect fit for Hoenn, whose dialogue is unusually flowery, almost theatrical, which makes him feel almost more like a performer than a Pokemon battler. His team composition and battle philosophy leans more into tricky setups rather than just pure damage. He has the Rain Dance setup for boosting the power of his water type attacks, as well as Ice Beam for some nice coverage. Both him and Wallace being the final gym leaders of the Hoenn region really showcases how the theme of water runs way deeper than what people initially think. It's almost as if the expansion of the ocean, slowly overtaking the man-made land, was a big cultural fear around at the time in Japan because of the tsunamis that have torn through the country on numerous occasions, as well as just the global changes in climate being a huge fear for humanity in general. It's really subtle but cool thematic storytelling if that's what Game Freak was going for, and definitely shows some more maturity in the writing department from their part. Overall, Hoenn and Wallace make excellent final gym battles for the Hoenn region, and cap off this amazing cast of powerful, appealing characters. I just love how much detail and texture they bring to the world, especially in characters like Wallace, who end up becoming the champion in Pokemon Emerald. Again, selling the idea that this is a living and breathing world, and that things don't just stay static all the time. Definitely my favorite bunch of gym leaders so far to dig into, and I'm sure I missed some things, so if you could find any extra details or tidbits about the lore that make these characters even more interesting, please feel free to tell me, as the more I know, the more fun these games are. But yeah, with that being said, those were all the gym leaders analyzed from the Hoenn region. Such a good set of characters and such an amazing Pokemon generation. I hope you enjoyed, as we move on to the next region of Sinnoh, one of the more interesting regions gym leader wise, so definitely be on the lookout for that. On to the Sinnoh region. I feel like for me personally, this is my least favorite batch of gym leaders, not because they're bad by any means, but simply because all of the other regions have such exemplar characters, except for Paldea, but we'll get to that. Sinnoh is an interesting region thematically, because it has a hard focus this time on myths, legends, and pantheons unlike the past ones we've explored. It has by far the most legendary Pokemon introduced out of any generation so far, and tends to go more deeper into the Pokemon lore and origins than other regions, a general theme that continues to persist in other Sinnoh-focused games like Legends Arceus. The reason I mention this is because many of the gym leaders in this region had to do with old traditions and bucking old trends with new ones and so forth. A lot of the core conflict in these games had to do with managing the balance between the old and the new, with the main goal of the central villain, Cyrus, essentially being to get rid of the old world and create a new one in his own image. So yeah, a lot of the gym leaders this generation will have to do with stuff like tradition and new norms. Got all that? Great! So I guess I'll stop wasting time and let's just jump into it. For the first gym leader of Sinnoh, we have Rourke, and are you serious? This is the third time that we have a rock gym leader as the first typing. I guess Game Freak just decided it's the best tutorial boss fight typing. Rourke is easily the blandest gym leader in terms of his design. I mean, he just looks like a miner. And in terms of personality, yep, that's pretty much all you get with him. The most interesting part of his character is his relationship with his father, who took him and a couple of other kids to this place called Iron Island, which they farmed for resources and generally trained with the wild Pokemon there. Rourke reaffirms that theme of the past and ancient legends with the fact that he's a miner who usually mines for fossils, something associated with long-dead ancient creatures. He's so obsessed with the hobby that you actually have to come find him in the cave in order to get him to go back to the gym. A nice bit of characterization, if a bit simple. His team, once again like most rock-type gym leaders, is nothing to write home about. I'm pretty sure he just copyrighted Brock from Gen 1, with his Geodude and Onix as the first two Pokemon. His Cranidos, however, is a nice surprise, as it organically works in his fascination with fossils by the fact that he has a fossil Pokemon. That, in combination with its moveset of Leer, Headbutt, and Pursuit, make it a quite dangerous Pokemon if the player's not careful. But yeah, Rourke is a pretty simple gym leader all things considered. By far the most boring starting gym leader, that's for sure. Next up is Gardenia, and she continues the trend of myths, legends, and mythology with the fact that she's in Eterna City, a location that literally has a giant ancient statue in the middle of it, and is also near the old chateau. Gardenia is the first real boss battle of the Sinnoh region in my opinion, especially if you chose Piplup as your starter, as her grass-type Pokemon have nasty status boosts, with Roselia in particular being extremely tricky, but most people choose Chimchar as their starter anyway. Gardenia is subtly implied to be afraid of ghosts, which is peculiar considering that she loves to hang out in Eterna Forest, which is right next to the old chateau. Pretty weird. She's also said to be a gym leader that forces all of her challengers to face off against the other students in her gym, which actually implies all of the other trainers that you fought in gym leaders are just randos and not a part of the gym itself, which is pretty funny to think about. Another thing about her dislike of ghost types that's weird is that she actually teams up with Fantina in the Battle Tower in Sinnoh. She's just full of little contradictions like that. But yeah, other than that, there's not too much to say on her. She's kind of like your generic flower-loving grass-type gym leader, and serves mainly as just the basic skill check for the player to make sure that they're on their game.
Alright, so now we have Maylene, the first female fighting type gym leader, and actually, fun fact, the fighting type gym leaders continue to stay as women for the rest of the series. How neat. Maylene's an interesting character because unlike the other gym leaders in this region, she gets a lot of attention, and that's probably because she has Lucario as her ace, which if you don't know, Lucario is one of the most popular Pokemon of all time, so she gets clout points for that off rip. She reinforces that theme again of old versus new by the fact that she's the youngest gym leader up until this point in the game, her and Candace respectively, which Candace is kind of like her best friend as she speaks very highly of her. Another very weird thing about Maylene is that the game and her put a lot of emphasis on being barefoot as being the super powerful Ultra Instinct move, because all the Pokemon are barefoot as well, but I'm going to just show this clip from Lux and Noggin if you will.
In traditional Japanese homes and dojos and such, and even her own gym in the anime, you take your shoes off to not damage the tatami mats. Hence, also the gym leader being foot fetish bait. I mean, she identifies as the barefoot fighting genius. But what makes her bare feet so special? Like all of the martial artists when in these buildings should be barefoot. In fact, almost all of them are. You're just the first one to put so much focus on it because you're also the first lady.
Hey yo, what the
One.
Yeah, I don't think that's a coincidence that Game Freak made that a thing. In terms of team composition, she has some nasty stuff on her side, with the meta-type Fake Out sure to throw players for a loop, and just generally a strong offensive team with the focus energy raising crit status of the Machoke, and the iconic Lucario just having solid type coverage. Crash Awake, a genuinely interesting gym leader now. What's funny about him is that I actually did the opposite of what I did with Brawly. I assumed that he was a fighting type gym leader, when in reality he's a water type one. Once again, this could just be because I'm dumb. But Game Freak once again is showing that just because your typing is one thing, does not hold you into a certain occupation, something the other gym leaders don't seem to get. But yeah, Crash Awake is proof that pro wrestling canonically exists in Pokemon, so that's fun. He's a nice breath of fresh air from the other quieter Sinnoh gym leaders. He's bright, loud, and jovial, completely in the player's face in both team and personality. I couldn't see how he connected to the whole themes of tradition versus the new, but he is thematically connected to the many waterways of the Sinnoh region, with the fact that he kinda represents Lake Valor and the other legendary lakes of this region. In terms of team comp, having a Gyarados this early into the game that knows Waterfall is pretty meta, I'm not gonna lie. That with the Aqua Jet boosted Floatzel, and he's actually a pretty tough challenge, I gotta say. I know I definitely struggled with him as a kid, especially since I chose Chimchar as my starter. But yeah, Crash Awake is my favorite gym leader so far in this region, as he's a nice breakup from all of the monotony of the others. And the improvement train just keeps on going with my actual favorite gym leader up next, Fantina. Fantina, the most French-inspired Pokemon character, despite not having an origin in Kalos apparently. Listen, I'm just gonna say she's from Kalos, it just makes too much sense. Everything about her character is just stunning, from the amazing character design with the 4 purple hair ploofs in the back, to her eccentric personality and the fact that she's a Pokemon contest winner worldwide. She has a dynamic posing and silhouette with every single frame she gets in her pixel art, and she has my favorite ghost Pokemon of all time, Miss Magius, on her team. How neat. Speaking of that team, she kind of follows in Gardenia's footsteps with her setup trick-based team. Her Duskull having Will-O-Wisp with Future Sight is a pretty nasty combo, and for some reason, all of her Pokemon hit like an absolute truck, with them all having stab-boosted Ghost-type moves, with Shadow Sneak, Shadow Claw, and Shadow Ball, which Shadow Ball in tandem with Miss Magius' Confuse Ray is just sure to end some runs tragically. Fantina also fits into that mythos theming, with the fact that ghost types are actually pretty important in the Sinnoh region, due to stuff like the Distortion World and other supernatural undertones. Sinnoh is the birthplace of all Pokemon after all, so the abundance of ghost type Pokemon alongside the fossils, it paints a pretty grim picture. But yeah, Fantina is by far easily the best Sinnoh gym leader. Nothing much more to say about that. For our next gym leader, Byron, we actually have an interesting case where the father is way more interesting than the son. He, like his son, has a fascination with mining and digging, but unlike Rourke, he actually has a personality outside of that. I guess it's fitting that this is a son-father combo, as Rock is generally seen as the more pure, innocent, and less refined version of Steel, or Metal, as Game Freak should probably call this typing. He's actually not even surprised that the player managed to beat Rourke despite him being a gym leader, supposedly the strongest trainers in this region. Yeah, this is the exact reason I said that gym leaders should adjust their level depending on how many badges their challenger has. If Rourke is out here losing to rookies, it makes no sense why he should have the power to essentially gatekeep one of the most prestigious titles in all of Pokemon. But this isn't about his son, this is about Byron. How's his team looking? Well, His team is actually pretty easy to beat, I'm not gonna lie. See, the steel typing is actually a really good type competitively, but game NPCs don't typically know how to utilize it correctly. So in turn, they use these really weird nonsense movesets that run completely antithetical to how you're supposed to play these Pokemon. That, and the fact that his Pokemon team get absolutely run through by any ground type moves. That Bastiodon ain't doing him any kind of favors. It is a deceptively bad Pokemon. In terms of theming, Byron continues that whole mining for old fossils and Pokemon that we had with Rourke. Like father, like son, I guess. Now Candace is another infamous gym leader, due to the fact that her name is a horrible pun, and her design is completely antithetical to her type speciality. I mean, I guess the jacket around her waist counts as something cold wear. Man, Game Freak just keeps slapping winter wear on characters and saying, here, you're an ice type gym leader now. Like I said with Maylene, it seems these two are close friends as they're both the youngest gym leaders in the region, representing that whole old versus new theme I keep mentioning. Apparently, Maylene hikes up Candace's mountain frequently in order to chat with her. Doing that while barefoot in that type of attire is actually insanely impressive. Candace in terms of personality is actually insanely subversive. Unlike the usual Ice-type gym leaders, her personality of being warm and kind to all around her, and her stressing the need to befriend Pokemon before you can battle with them, is quite the refreshing take on such a hobby in this world. She's an Ice-type specialist, but is actually the most warm and welcoming. That's the nice kind of thematic contrast I'm looking for in these games. Her team, however, isn't all that to write home about. Sadly, Ice-typing around this time was one of the worst types in the game, and it shows. I mean, look at that Obama Snow being quad weak to fire. Anyone that chose Chimchar as their starter, which might I remind you is iconically the most popular choice in this region, is absolutely running through her with Infernape. Wait a minute, let me rephrase. She tries to go for some weird hail setup team, but only Pokemon that take advantage of that is her Frostlass, which is annoying to hit due to the whole evasion thing, but one or two Ghost or Fire type moves is absolutely taking that thing to the grave. So yeah, Candace is a pretty alright gym leader who gets a lot more hate than she deserves. I'm now starting to debate whether I put her above Crash Awake or not. On to the final gym leader in Volkner, and can I just take the time to point out, look how bad the BDSP art for all these gym leaders look. The original pixel art was so much more charming and full of personality. They just completely butchered these games, man. But yeah, Volkner finishes off that theme of old versus new with the fact that he's an old school gym leader that has to rekindle his passion for Pokemon battling after years of absolutely dominating people in the gym apparently. He's by far the most interesting character in terms of his personality, as the idea of a gym leader who's tired of battling because he's too good is actually a really fascinating idea on the surface. Unfortunately for him, he doesn't follow up this cocky and cool attitude of his because his team composition is absolutely not competitive viable. I mean, first off, any trainer bragging that he's tired of winning all the time but has a mono-type team, that's already a red flag that they don't know what they're doing. I mean, Game Freak could have went absolutely wild with this character. Let him use actual setup moves. Let him have choice scarfs and held items that make him a pain to beat. I mean, I guess they didn't want him to be too overpowered for the player, but you're the ones that hyped him up, Game Freak. I guess his Luxray and Raichu have good type coverage with their moves. Volkner also again brings up weird questions about Pokemon's world building. He apparently just has the power and authority to rent out the electrical devices in his gym, which leads to a blackout in Sunny Shore City that you yourself have to go convince him to stop. I mean, what kind of person has that much power? I mean, there are just no legal repercussions for this. Last thing about Volkner is that he's apparently friends with Flint of the Elite Four in this region, but I'm just gonna come out here and say it, this is the worst Elite Four out of any Pokemon game by far. All of their designs look silly and goofy, man. But yeah, Volkner is a pretty interesting character that execution-wise wasn't done the best in my opinion. He's absolutely a cool idea that Game Freak tried to pull off, but definitely needed more time in the oven to cook. And with that, I've covered all of Sinnoh's gym leaders. Definitely the weakest batch so far in my opinion, but I'm sure that you guys will have your disagreements. If anything, Sinnoh was a setup for Pokemon mastering the character designs and thematic undertones of their gym leaders at this point in time. They had already made 24 so far with Kanto through Hoenn, and I guess that they thought Sinnoh would be their time to really start experimenting with stuff. And because of that, they ended up making some of the best gym leaders, nigh best characters in video games, for their next region of Unova, which I am absolutely stoked to cover them, as it's my favorite generation and easily my favorite set of Pokemon games ever. So stick around for that. Like always, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.
Oh boy, we finally made it to what I and many others think is the best Pokemon generation ever created. Pokemon Black and White and the Unova region in general just added so much charm and personality to the series that it's honestly a crime that these games weren't well received when they first came out. I mean, we're talking over 151 new Pokemon species exclusive to the region, a whole new battle arena featuring all past gym leaders, including the ones from this game, fully animated in the polished sprite work with whole new team compositions, and an absolutely banger story that is the most ambitious Pokemon has ever had, and still remains one of my top favorite video game characters of all time. And so, as you might have guessed, yes, Unova region has by far the best gym leaders out there in my opinion. They're just so full of personality, lore, and character that makes them stand out above the rest. They have changed over the years like the Kanto gym leaders, amazing inspired designs like the Johto gym leaders, immersive, actual depth like the Hoenn gym leaders, and a nice thematic undertone like the ones in Sinnoh. They're simply the best batch of gym leaders that Game Freak has ever made. And of course, I'm here to cover and analyze all of them. So sit back and relax as I analyze every single gym leader in the Pokemon Black and White generation. Starting off, we have a banger, with the first gym leader of this region actually being a trio of brothers, that being the iconic Spice Brothers, Cress, Cylan, and Chili. This is the best starting gym, unlike anything we've seen before in Pokemon. Like I said in earlier parts, most of the gym leaders from previous generations started with Rock type, as it was the best way to show the type combination matchup for each Pokemon, as Rock was guaranteed to be at least weak to 2 out of the 3 starter Pokemon, that being Grass and Water. Well, this gym does that idea but spectacularly better because it shows how they're adapting to your typing by choosing the type you're weak to. If you choose Snivy, you get to fight Chili. If you chose Oshawott, you have to fight Cylan. And if you chose Tepig, you have to fight Cress. All the types that you're weak to. And this directly shows the player, hey, type matchups matter, so we're going to put it in your face. I especially love the fact that they give you a Pansage equal to the type that you're resistant against, which makes it easier for you to fight the gym leaders. It's an excellent first tutorial boss fight that showcases the main mechanics of the game to the player without being too overbearing. On top of that, I also like the character arc these 3 brothers get, with they themselves acknowledging that they're the weakest gym leaders in the region by far. In the memory link, you can see a flashback as to why they quit being gym leaders in the second games. It's because they felt their level was not up to par with the other gym leaders, especially during a certain story event at the end of Black and White's story. They get attacked by a group of the Shadow Triad members and get absolutely destroyed. After this quite frankly embarrassing showcase, they decide that they need to resign in order to train better. I love this so much because it shows how the gym leaders in these regions are actual living, breathing human beings who aren't just emotionless automatons existing only to challenge the player and nothing more. They have real reactions to in-world story events. They have actual characters that change over the course of the story. Black and White's increased focus on narrative storytelling in these games add the extra benefit of making these characters seem more real. And as far as first gym leaders go, it doesn't get more iconic and excellent than this. Easily the best first gym leader in Pokemon. Next gym leader we have up next is Lenora of Nacrene City, the very first black gym leader and black character I think in all of Pokemon. Isn't that neat? Despite the small controversy with her aside, I think she's an excellent character and great addition to the cast. Her design in my opinion is really sick and her team composition is nothing to scoff at. With that level 20 Watchdog to hypnosis and lower your defenses just for Herdier to come in with the base 140 Retaliate, she's easily one of the hardest early challenges of any region. And I like this a lot, as it reasserts her personality as a very strong and capable woman, something I'm sure Game Freak was going for. Something I forgot to mention that I love about the gym leaders this region is the fact that they have actual jobs outside of just Pokemon battling, something that was hinted at in Hoenn but is embraced fully by the time this game comes around. The Spice Brothers were fancy chefs at this gourmet restaurant, while Lenora is a museum profiteer, handling all of the Pokemon fossils in the region and even giving you this region's fossil Pokemon. How convenient. Her love of ancient history is also combined with the fact that her museum's also a library. The clever little puzzles you have to do to get to her was also a nice little touch. And if you look at her memory link in Black and White 2, you can see her conversation with Berg about the nature of Pokemon fossils, with Berg having his artist block and questioning what he sees in bug-type Pokemon, specifically how he misunderstood them due to their exoskeletons. Lenora offers a nice and touching story about how when she was a child, her father, who worked as a miner, dug up the bones and remains of other Pokemon and gave it to her, and that's when she became fascinated with them because they looked like they were a living being. Why were they shaped like that? How did this Pokemon interact with its environment and stuff like that? It absolutely captivated her. And you see, it's stuff like that that just makes me appreciate how much detail and character writing went into Black and White's gym leaders.
I don't think there's anything on the level of this writing out of any of the Pokemon characters, much less the gym leaders up until this point in the franchise. It once again asserts my point that the Unova Pokemon games just had top tier writing in the series. For the Bug-type gym leader, we have Berg, probably the most eccentric gym leader in all of the games. He's a unique character, mostly for the fact that he's an amazing, famous artist apparently, and he also helps a lot with dispelling all of the Team Plasmacrunts that you fight early on. Again, this region does a great job of showing the gym leaders actually having a personality and lives outside of gym battling. It's great stuff. Everything about this man, from his excellent design to his expressive animations, to even his flowery dialogue, it's all pretty great stuff. Even though he's by far the weakest gym leader of this generation, I mean, Bug-type isn't exactly a great typing as we've already discussed previously. He's still a very fun boss fight, with him using exclusively Unova Pokemon, and having some pretty decent type coverage with his Dwebble, which is a rock and bug typing, to dispel any fire types from sweeping his gym. I like the character detail that he actually has artist block quite a lot, which is a common phenomenon in real life, and he goes over to Nacrene City to talk to Lenora in order to help him with it. As I've discussed with Lenora already, they actually have a pretty engaging conversation about Pokemon bones and fossils, and what it means to them personally. All this in an attempt to help Berg with his artist block. This one conversation showcases just how close the Unova gym leaders are to one another, almost as if they're co-workers and not completely separate like in the previous regions. They really feel like one whole connected family in these games, and Berg is just another excellent addition to that family. Easily my favorite Bug-type gym leader in the entire franchise. Alright, next up we have the supermodel Elisa, my and many other people's favorite gym leader of all time. I've been debating in my head whether or not it would be Sabrina or Elisa, but upon further analysis, yeah, it's definitely Elisa. I mean, everything done about her character is just simply perfect. Number one, her character and gym design is one of the best in the entire series. As I'm sure you're all aware, the iconic gym in Pokemon Black and White 2 has her singing with actual voice acting once you beat all of the other Pokemon trainers. This amount of spectacle and hype for a gym battle of all things was simply unheard of in Pokemon games up until this point, and it's sad to see how far we've regressed in terms of the mainline ones. Secondly, Elisa has actually pretty important story and character writing stuff, as she directly confronts Bianca's dad about her being a Pokemon trainer. Bianca's father is actually written pretty compellingly, as he simply has concern for her daughter traveling on a dangerous, region-wide journey that doesn't guarantee her safety. So in the cutscene we get with him and her arguing, it's actually pretty emotional stuff, and Elisa actually comes in to give some words of wisdom, stating how everyone in life won't agree with you always, and sometimes that will bring hurt and pain, but it's still better and important to try, because that's the only way that the relationship between others, not just Pokemon, can actually improve. It's pretty mature storytelling for a kid's game, I've gotta say. And one of the reasons why Elisa is such a fantastic gym leader and character. The final reason why she's cemented as my favorite gym leader is just because of how well designed her gym actually is. The fight itself is grueling, and I and many other people cite it as being easily the hardest gym battle in Gen 5. Electric is already a pretty notorious type for only having one central weakness, that being ground type. So you have Emolga, this flying and electric type Pokemon that is immune to ground type moves, which makes it even harder to pin down, but if that wasn't hard enough, all of her Pokemon have the move Volt Switch, which allows them to rotate in battle. This is actually a legit competitive strategy that real VGC players use in the game's meta. Being able to essentially damage your opponent for good stab damage while rotating to another Pokemon is simply overpowered this early in the game. And it doesn't help the fact that she actually has pretty good move coverage for all of her Pokemon. I mean, Zebstrika has Flame Charge for any Grass-type Pokemon that resists Electric type, and Emolga has Acrobatics to punish any players that chose Tepig as their starter, as Pignite will be weak to Flying-type moves. And even her Flampy, who is the slowest of the bunch, has Takedown, which does just an absurd amount of damage that's hard to deal with. Definitely the hardest gym battle I've fought while playing these games, and certainly my favorite of all the gym battles in terms of the team composition. I mean, they just made her gym brilliant. And the icing on the cake to Elisa's character is that apparently she's actually a fan of music and good friends with Skyla, the other baddie of this generation. She actually has a subtle character trait where she's a bit insecure about how people perceive her as this cold, non-caring gym leader, when in reality she wants to be seen as more fun-loving and easygoing. That adds some nice dimensional depth to her character, and once again showcases Unova's superb character writing. I have the personal story with me choosing Oshawott of losing to her over 5 times, each failure compelling me to try harder and harder to beat her, and me getting elevated with her amazing gym music in Black and White 2. That core memory, alongside my personal analysis in this video series, has made me come to terms with the fact that Elisa is by far my favorite gym leader in these games.
For both Black and White and 2, she's easily the most well-designed and iconic gym leader out there. For the next gym leader up, we have Clay, probably the most stereotypical Southern American character we have in the entire franchise. I mean, look at this dude. He's essentially just a Texas oil tycoon, which is basically his entire character, I'm not gonna lie. Seriously, that's all that there is really to this character. I mean, he likes money and is obsessed with business and stuff like that, but his personality is kind of unlikable, I'm not gonna lie. Like, he's the one to lower the bridge to drift fail and then blames the player for the reason why Team Plasma escapes. Plus, he's like a super capitalist, so what's there not to dislike? His whole conversation during the whole Bones fiasco in the memory link is just saying, oh my gosh, I hope these bones are worth a lot of money. To which even Lenora thinks that's distasteful. Anyways, Clay is obviously meant to be a stand-in for the rich tycoon billionaire trope, since Unova is based off of the US and all. In terms of team composition, his teams are actually pretty similar between games, with him simply swapping out the Palitoad for a Sandslash in Black and White 2. He's no cakewalk, however, as his Crocorock has swagger, an annoying confusion-causing move, and his Excadrill has an absolutely monstrous attack stat that can speed up itself with Hoenn Claws to make sure it's Bulldoze and Rock Slide, OHKO your entire team. But yeah, in terms of character depth and personality, he's pretty simple, all things considered. I would definitely rank him among the lowest this generation, because he's just not as interesting or hot as some of the other gym leaders this region, which we're about to get to. Oh boy, here we go, we have Skyla, probably the most sexualized character in all of Pokemon. On a serious note, seeing the Game Freak leaks for these character sheets and how they designed these gym leaders, there's some absolutely wild stuff in there. I mean, the fact that they outright just confirmed that she's canonically a Latino character, with them making some interesting statements about her ethnicity. Seriously, what the heck. Her and Lenora, by the way. That paired with the fact that they literally nicknamed her the sexy pilot gym leader, just goes to show you that these game designers know what they're doing. It's not a coincidence. On to her actual character, I actually don't hear a lot of people talk about this for some reason, but she's actually a pretty optimistic and bright spirits kind of character. She even asked the player to help her out with an injured Pokemon in Celestial Tower before you even get to battle her. In terms of team composition, I actually find Skyla to be one of the easier gym leaders in all of Pokemon, just due to the fact that her flying type Pokemon really aren't all that threatening with their horde base stat totals and limited move pool. I mean, her Swanna has Bubble Beam for Christ's sake. This is the 6th gym leader. In Black and White 2, she does somewhat better by choosing Skarmory as a nice bulky Pokemon, but it's running moves like Steel Wing and Agility and not the Stealth Rocker that it's known for in competitive. Oh well. Even after she loses, she remains a bubbly and optimistic character, showing how she really doesn't see the downside of most things. I feel like in terms of character, Skyla isn't actually all that remarkable, besides her absurd character design, which is the only thing people ever talk about with this character really. For the Ice-type gym leader, we have Bryson, probably one of the other forgettable gym leaders of this region. I mean, I don't know what is up with Game Freak and their very on-the-nose Ice-type gym leader names, but they have got to stop. But Bryson's an actually pretty cool character, all things considered. I mean, he used to be a head movie star, essentially being this world's Bruce Lee, and even retained some of his action and martial arts prowess, with him being able to detect the Shadow Triad in that one scene with Team Plasma. He's just a very stoic and aura-farming character, what can I say? He's also a great advertiser for Pokemon Black and White 2's Pokestar Studios mode, which is hella underrated. For his team composition, sadly having Aura doesn't make the Ice type any better. He still has to run one of the worst types in the game with mono Ice type moves like Frost Breath and Aurora Beam, stuff that is base 60 in power, while he's the 7th gym battle of the entire game. I would like to say his Beartic offers some threat with his Icicle Crash and crazy attack, but at this point in the game, the player should be well enough adjusted and have a fire type to deal with this gym, and Emboar just absolutely desecrates it. Still though, Bryson is an underrated gym leader nonetheless. For the final gym leader of the Unova region, we have Drayden, the Dragon-type gym leader. He serves as kind of the pseudo-final boss of the game, with him having the strongest typing by far up until that point, and his character in Gym Fight is kind of sidelined by the general Team Plasma plotline, which is reaching its climax at this point in the game. Some cool personality bits about him is that he's the mayor of Opalescent City, and apparently wrestles with Pokemon in order to make them stronger. If that's not metal, I don't know what is. With all things considered, he's actually a pretty tough gym leader, with him having the Dragon type and all, and him actually cheating by having a level 44 Haxorus, which Fracture can only evolve at level 48, so what gives, man?
When you beat him, he gives you the TM for Draco Meteor, one of the most busted moves in all of Pokemon, and Drayden kind of serves as the head ringer for all of the gym leaders of Unova, being the first in line to aid in helping defeat Team Plasma. But yeah, that's as much as Drayden needs to be, just a really solid final gym leader to cap off this amazing region, and an excellent character to boot. His boss and gym design is among the best in the game, easily top 3 if it weren't for Roxy and Elisa's absolutely brilliant designs. On to the second gym leader of Opalescent City, we have Iris. For players that get Pokemon White version, she is the gym leader instead of Drayden. Now, Iris is actually a pretty interesting character because I actually liked her a lot in her anime incarnation, which I heard a lot of people despised her in that, but I didn't actually know a lot about her in the games up until recently, when I replayed through Black and White 2. In the game, she has a pretty stark difference in personality shift from the anime, with her taking a more stoic and heroic persona rather than her sassy, easily irritated personality that she's given in the anime. Her team is actually slightly better than Drayden's, despite them looking exactly the same, because her Haxorus has the ability Mold Breaker, which is way better than the garbage that is Rivalry, an ability that actually nerfs Haxorus if it's fighting against a Pokemon of the opposite gender. But in terms of her character in the games, she actually helps out a lot with Team Plasma, much like Berg, and she's actually given the reins over the Opalescent City gym after Drayden leaves to go pursue Team Plasma. An amazing detail that is the main feature of her character, though, is her arc in Black and White 2, where she actually becomes the champion of the Unova region. In this, once again, brilliant memory leak scene, we see how Drayden took Iris under his belt and trained her as his own daughter, and how she became far superior to any other trainer in the region, even managing to defeat Alder of all people. This scene is pretty emotional, as it's basically Drayden telling Iris how proud of her he is, and how much he enjoys watching her battle with her Pokemon. It's even stated that he's the one that gave her the dress you see in the final fight of Black and White 2. That paired with the amazing theme that takes place during this battle, and Iris is a pretty spectacular character despite the fact that she plays a pretty minor role in these games. Though I would like to see an actual location for her home, the Village of Dragons, what Black and White did with Iris's character, for as little as they had, was simply spectacular. From her character design, to her personality, to her ultimate ascension as the Unova champion in Black and White 2. For the first of the new gym leaders in Pokemon Black and White 2, we have Cheren, who is actually your old rival in Black and White 1. This is another brilliant story decision in my opinion, as it shows the improvement and character progression of old past characters. It's mature storytelling, and again, adds logical weight to the world building. I even like how Cheren's redesign looks more teacher-like he's more studious and all. Even though his team can give you enough trouble if you're not too careful, he shouldn't be too hard of a first boss for players. His gym focuses to show the player the importance of stat buffs, and how you shouldn't just let your opponent set up in front of you. Definitely the coolest rival character by far, as they had him evolve from this meek little kid to this prestigious, highly respectable Pokemon official. Definitely one of the most underrated arcs in all of Pokemon in my opinion. Now, Roxy is easily the best gym leader of Black and White 2, and easily my second favorite in all of Unova. I mean, they just put the most effort into this gym for absolutely no reason. You're telling me they have full-on voice acting for the Nintendo DS when Galar can't even bother to have one single scene of somebody just say something? I mean, you probably already heard this before, but Pierce's gym challenge is downright embarrassing. I absolutely love the fact that her gym music starts to dissipate as you beat the other band members, starting with the drums to the bass guitar to eventually Roxy herself. It unironically creates some amazing dramatic tension in the story, as it builds up to the climax being the gym boss battle. And once again, showcasing how gym leaders actually have real lives outside of battling. I mean, using an underground punk rock concert as a way of representing the poison type is simply brilliant. Plus in the Japanese version of the song, they're actually saying dogars, which is the Japanese version of coughing. In terms of her character, she also has an argument with her father about becoming a movie star, something that she wants to do. Man, a lot of arguments with fathers and daughters in this game. But yeah, he shoots her down and demands her to find the balance between her rock star life and being a gym leader. Again, some pretty nice thematic depth that gives layers to the world. Roxy is just an extremely fun, well-crafted, and excellent gym battle. One of the best in the franchise, much like a lot of the things in the Pokemon Black and White games. And last but not least, for the final gym leader you face in the Unova games, we have Marlon. This gym leader is pretty notorious for being kind of a nothing burger. I mean, his personality and ideology in life about all viewpoints being valid is somewhat concerning to most people because of obvious reasons. But I never saw that as a malicious thing, just kind of him being a dude bro
everyone should just chill and vibe, man. I mean, for Pete's sake, he just jumps into the ocean after you beat him like it was nothing. He's so oblivious to most of the events happening in the game and story that it's almost kind of likable. He just chugs along in life, unconcerned with all of the drama and politics of the world. For being the final gym leader of these games, however, he's slightly underwhelming, with him only having 3 Pokemon, with his Kirakosta in particular not even having a real fight in the matter if you chose Snivy. One Leaf Storm from a superior and that thing is dead. His Jellicent with Recover can be annoying, as well as the Wailord with the Amnesia rollout. That can be pretty dangerous if you're not careful, but no trainer that's made it this far into the game should realistically have a problem with him. And with that, we covered the best set of gym leaders in all of Pokemon. Thank you so much for watching, as these were my favorite ones to go over by far if you couldn't tell. Unova's further attention to detail, as well as its focus on narrative and character writing, make it simply a blast to go through. I was just in awe with how much level of detail these characters and story had. From their arcs over the 2 games, to their boss and gym design and team composition, to even the dialogue they have in the game, everything's just simply of a higher quality. And I'm sad that we may never get characters and story writing on the quality of Black and White 2, as there's a reason why these games are still seen as the peak of the franchise almost 15 years later. Still though, even if the Unova games still remain as the best Pokemon experiences of all time, I will live happily knowing that they burned very brightly, and to me personally, are in the top 10 of my personal favorite video games of all time.
Alright, after the masterpiece that was the Unova region, I think it's high time we cool off with one of the more underrated regions in the Pokemon franchise, and that is Kalos, Pokemon X and Y. These games got pretty shafted in my opinion, not gonna lie, from their refusal to give it a 3rd version in Pokemon Z. Hopefully Legend ZA will fix that. But in terms of gym leader composition, I think this game has an absolutely stellar lineup. All of the characters this time around have gorgeous, memorable character designs, which makes sense given this is the region of beauty and all. Though most of the gym leaders are a bit lacking in the writing and, difficulty department, I still say they do a nice job of being a fun and engaging boss fight for the players to explore. So instead of just talking about it, let's just jump into them, shall we? Starting off with Viola, another bug-type gym leader. Geez, you'd think after Berg that they would have chilled out with these. Unlike Berg, however, she is not an artist but instead a photographer, as you can tell by the mini camera she holds in her portrait art. Yeah, like I said at the beginning, these gym leaders in terms of team composition are really embarrassing. Like, not even having 4 moves on your team at this point in the game is ridiculous. You're a gym leader for Pete's sake. I felt like after the controversial Black and White generation, Game Freak decided to take it a bit more safe and easy with X and Y, serving as a soft return to formula if you will. I mean, you have Mega Evolutions for the OG starters, you have the smallest amount of new Pokemon added to any generation ever, and you have gym leaders that have only 3 moves on their team per Pokemon. Safe to say, Game Freak was a little scared of the controversial reception that Gen 5 had, and so they did a little bit of an overcorrection in my opinion. On to Viola herself, like I also said at the beginning, the gym leaders don't have nearly as much depth this time around. Apparently she's good friends with the other gym leader, Valerie, as the little hair tie she has on the back of her head was a gift from her for her birthday. Viola's older sister Alexa is actually a reporter who does do reports on the gym leaders from time to time, but yeah, that's pretty much all the game gives about her. Nothing too special as far as first gym leaders go, but it shows Game Freak was trying to take a more safe approach this time around. On to Grant now, the second gym leader at Kalos, and oh boy, we have our first black guy gym leader. I mean, I guess Marshall from Pokemon Black and White counted, but he was an Elite Four member and barely gets any presence in that game. I don't know, but I just found Grant's character design and personality really memorable in my playthrough of X and Y. The fact that he's proficient in a lot of professional sports, including rock climbing and mountain biking, just added to his flair in my opinion, especially given the fact that his voice actor in the anime is really good. Although once again, his team is nothing to scoff at, as he only has 3 moves on his ace, Tyrant, and the one Pokemon he did give 4 moves to, his Amira, has quite possibly the worst type combination in all of Pokemon, having a total of 6 weaknesses, with 2 of them being quad weak in fighting and steel. Man, they really wanted to throw the player a bone this time around. At least Grant introduces the concept of status conditions, with his Amira having Thunder Wave and all. But yeah, Grant in terms of personality is a pretty stoic fella, and apparently to train for his numerous sports, he has a strict diet, which has gotta be painful in a region based off of France with some of the best desserts around, something he laments himself. But hey, at least his hairstyle is pretty cool. Alright, up next we have Karina, by far one of the most popular gym leaders of the Kalos region, and this is another character that I'd say gets the anime tax hard. While in the actual game, she's pretty one note, simply serving as a trial for the Mega Stone for the player. In the anime, she has this whole ass arc with Ash, where she introduces Mega Evolution for the first time ever. She sadly continues the trend of the X and Y gym leaders being pathetic pushovers, with her team not even being able to hit ghost types at all. So you bring any ghost type Pokemon such as Hoenn, Drifblim, Golett, Sableye, or Nikita for Shedinja, all obtainable before Gym 3, yeah, she's just kinda screwed. Like I said before, her personality in the games isn't anything too special. In her Gym Freaks interview, she stated to be a video star with her dressing up in multiple costumes and sort of being like the Bryson of the Kalos region in that regard. A martial arts master that's pretty exciting on film to see. One of the core themes of the Kalos region is all about beauty and grace, as you can tell from the many different Pokemon that represent it. I don't even disagree with that theme. I mean, most of the Pokemon from Gen 6 are absolutely stunning in their design, with some of my personal favorites of all time coming from this region. But yeah, like most of the other gym leaders, most of Karina's cool stuff comes in the anime, which I am sadly not analyzing for these character analysis. She is a cool gym leader though, and I also like how she represents the fighting type while not being adjacent to something fighter-ish like martial arts or something. Just a really cool skater rink girl. Once again, evolving on the fact that Black and White's gym leaders had actual jobs and roles outside of I am the type specialist you fight against. Pretty neat to see. For the grass-type gym leader of the Kalos region, we have Ramos, probably the most forgettable gym leader in my opinion. I mean, his whole shtick is that he's old, and he does the stereotypical old thing like calling the player whippersnapper and stuff. His gym, like all the others, are still refusing to use 4 moves on their Pokemon up until this point. I was going to compare him a lot to Erica, who's also the 4th gym leader of the grass type in Kanto, but man, her team had a nice synergy with status condition moves, while his team are just pre-evolution baby Pokemon that will barely stand one fire move from a Finnegan. According to the TV show Game Freaks, he's apparently had his cutting scissors for over 30 years. How that thing hasn't experienced wear and tear up until this point is beyond me. It must have been made before the 2000s when things were still built to last. But yeah, I really got nothing on Ramos here. He's by far the most forgettable gym leader of this region. Okay, so I lied a bit when I said Karina was the most popular gym leader. Clement is definitely way more popular than her, especially because of the anime tax he gets. I'm surprised it took this long to come up with the electric type gym leader that happened to be a scientist. You'd think that would be the first one. But yeah, Clement conceptually is a very fun character. I like how his name sounds like lemon, something that's used for science experiments at a young age to teach about electricity. And the whole thing about him being a super genius whose inventions apparently never work is a very fun cartoonish twist on this character archetype. His team unfortunately isn't doing him any favors, with him not even having a single Pokemon with Thunder Wave. Gosh man, even Grant had that. And bro really thinks he's Elisa having Volt Switch on his Emolga, only unlike her, he doesn't have amazing team synergy that makes him a pain to get through. I noticed with all the Gym Freaks interviews on the gym leaders that the reporter is really upfront with their attraction to each of them. I mean, look at some of the dialogue in these. Nevertheless, Clement is obviously a gym leader that Game Freak was really proud of, as they put a lot of effort into his gym design and his character in the anime. It's no surprise why he became a fan favorite. Definitely my favorite in this region, that's for sure. On to Valerie. She is by far the most interesting gym leader in Kalos, given that she's supposed to represent the newly made fairy typing. I know a lot of people rag on her character design, saying she looks kinda weird and alien, especially because of her eyes, but I actually think this is an amazing design decision, as the fairy typing throughout pop culture was never about just these cute fey little creatures that wouldn't harm a soul. Fairy tales get dark, man. And her beautiful but off-kilter design encapsulates that perfectly. Fairy types, just like other Pokemon, can be very cute and appealing, but are also capable of a dark and devious side to them, as most fairy tales often are. It doesn't help that the fairy type is by far the strongest type in all of Pokemon, having only 2 weaknesses and a ton of resistances, and their offensive moves and capabilities just being off the charts. Maybe that's why her gym was by far the hardest for me personally as a kid. And would you look at that, she actually has 2 Pokemon on her team with 4 moves in Mr. Mime and Sylveon, the new evolution of this generation. Apparently Valerie is close friends with Viola like I said before, but apparently she also used to be a model as seen in the Gym Freaks TV show interview. Not only that, but she apparently was a fashion designer who originally came from the Johto region. What a nice bit of lore. So yeah, between her and Clement, they both fight for the top spot for who I think is the best designed gym leader in this region. If not the best, then she's definitely the second best in my opinion. Alright, we have Olympia. There we go, finally a team full of 4 moves on each Pokemon. Now was that so hard? No, but in all seriousness, Olympia from a character perspective might be the most busted character in all of Pokemon. I've always had this weird thing with Psychic type gym leaders and the fact that they're apparently extremely powerful with Tate and Liza, Sabrina, and all those. Apparently the psychic powers they're using aren't a front or some weird trick, they actually have psychokinesis powers in lore, which is just crazy to think about. And apparently Olympia is the strongest one, with her being able to see a person's future just by having them touch her bracelet. Talk about overpowered. And it also makes her seem otherworldly in the fact that she constantly talks in Haikyuu, which is pretty funny, I'm not gonna lie. In terms of her team composition, Olympia actually puts up a fight. Her Slowking having Yawn and setting up with Calm Mind is actually pretty scary and dangerous if you're not careful. That paired with her Meowstic's crazy monstrous special attack stat, and it having Fake Out with Shadow Ball and Psychic, also with Calm Mind. And yeah, this is actually when the gym leaders start to become a real challenge. It only took the player running through all 6 of the previous ones to get to this point. But yeah, Olympia is a pretty fun and engaging gym leader. Nothing more to say there. And lastly but not leastly, we have Wulfric, the Ice-type gym leader of Kalos. By far my favorite of the Ice-type gym leaders design-wise. I mean, look at his posing. He's all posted up aura farming, dude looks simply immaculate. I like how in his Gym Freaks interview, the interviewer actually comments on the fact that he was watching one of Bryson's films. Isn't that a fun callback? But yeah, in terms of team composition, Wulfric goes out on a whimper, with his Abomasnow not even having 4 moves, and not even having the newly made Mega Evolution, the core gimmick of this generation. What are you doing, man? I mean, I guess you could count Avalugg as his true ace, with it having Curse, Crunch, and Gyro Ball to really mess up the opponent with its defense and speed buffs, but man, one Flamethrower from a Delphox and that thing's getting sent straight to the infirmary. Overall, I am not impressed with the gym leaders' team compositions this generation, but look at me saying a bold and controversial take. I'm sure you guys already knew that. But man, in terms of character, Wulfric is just a cool and swell dude. I mean, apparently he's not even afraid to show his emotion. As stated from that Gym Freaks interview I said earlier, he apparently cares a lot about his Pokemon and is even seen in the Winding Woods just chilling out in this serene area, not even worried about his gym leader duties. It's such a, dare I say, cool personality trait to have, as unlike all of the other gym leaders, he's not out for any BS reasons or fighting a team. He's just chilling, enjoying life, which is something rare for most of these characters. I guess that's what makes him so likable to both humans and Pokemon alike. Just a very strong and positive male figure in your life for most people to have. And I guess at the end of the day, that's all you really need to be a cool and likable character. Overall, I really like the Kalos region for all of the cool new ideas it introduced, while also being a throwback to Kanto in some ways. In retrospect, it had a lot of pressure on its hands to be the next generation on the 3DS and introduce so many new mechanics, and in terms of its execution, man, Kalos succeeded greatly. I mean, it's insane just how much fun and cozy this little game is to play, despite the fact that it's literally unfinished in some regards. The soundtrack is easily one of the best in the series, and even rivals Black and White 2's in my opinion. The story, while not as in-depth and as nuanced as Black and White's, is still pretty fun to enjoy, and has a lot of creative character writing moments, I'm not gonna lie. And the gym leaders, of course, are fun, larger-than-life characters that create a more engaging experience for the player. I reminisce on this era of the franchise fondly, because little did I know what we were going to go into given the next set of games in the Pokemon 7 through 9 generations, what I deem the controversial era of Pokemon. But I guess I'll save all of that for next time, when I go through the Galar gym leaders, because remember, Alola doesn't have any gym leaders. Until then, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Alright, on to the Galar region. Probably the most controversial set of Pokemon games in its entire history. But for me personally, I feel like the Sword and Shield gym leaders are actually pretty well made and substantiated in the universe, not gonna lie. And I'm far from the only person that thinks that, which is why for this section of the video I actually have a guest on with me, Crane.
Hi guys, I'm Crane. I sometimes stream on my channel, but not really a YouTuber. I know Plexi IRL, and I really like Pokemon.
You hear that, y'all? That means he has full reputable authority on all of his opinions involving the Galar gym leaders. No, but in all seriousness, the gym leaders this generation around are probably way more richer than what most people think. The Pokemon battles are a professional sport in the Galar region, and as such, the gym leaders have major sponsorships just like real-world athletes. As such, the themes for the Galar gym leaders this time around are focused more on fandom and the popularity of becoming such an esteemed trainer, something that you'll see jives nicely with most of their characters and team compositions. Without further ado, let me just stop wasting your time and let's just get into it. Alright, for the first gym leader of Galar, we have Milo, the grass-type gym leader. He's an interesting fellow because he was the first gym leader I thought had a crazy design with the whole baby face on a super muscular build, but that's just aiding in his character, in which he's a super tough-looking guy, but on the inside he's super soft. I really like the fact that his gym only uses 2 Pokemon that are exclusive to Galar, unlike the other teams in the region, which use other Pokemon from other regions. It makes him stand out the more, and pretty unique. It also aids in his character in the fact that he's more focused on having fun in gym battles rather than winning, which kind of makes him a pushover, but I don't know, it just kind of makes him more likable, in my opinion. What are your thoughts, Crane?
Yeah, building off that last part, I think it's super cool that, well, to me, Milo kind of reminds me of Brock from Pokemon Origins. He's not there to beat you. He's not there for the glory. He's there to have fun, and he's there to push new challengers forward in the gym challenge. And that's just a character I can vibe with. One other thing I will note is I think Milo's the only gym leader in Galar to not have a Gigantamax Pokemon. But that's okay because he's the very first gym leader, and that's Dynamax, not Gigantamax.
Yeah, that was dumb. Another thing I like about this region of Galar is that it introduces these things called League cards, which are just a nice little flavor text to give to the trainers and, the context in which they're in. For Milo's, it says that he's pretty liked in the town he's in, being the first town in the gym challenge, and he's apparently extremely strong with him being able to carry over 770 pounds of weight on him. He's very liked by the townsfolk, and who can't say that that's likable? For the next gym leader, we have Nessa, and how do I talk about this character without bringing up the interesting discourse surrounding her?
Simple. You think with your brain and not the other part.
Alright, on to actually talking about her character. Nessa, like many of the attractive female characters in Pokemon, happens to be a supermodel. How convenient, Game Freak. But in terms of personalities, I actually found her to be by far the dullest, as well as be, spoiler alert. Not only that, but her team is also a bit underwhelming. I mean, it's better than Kalos, that's for sure. But having a Goldeen as the second gym leader with Swift Swim, and not even having a Water Dance or Rain Dance on her team is pretty bizarre. Like, Game Freak, why did you give them these abilities? Her Dynamax Dreadnought is pretty cool though, keeping up the trend with actually having them use the mechanic introduced in the region.
Yeah, Nessa, I feel like, even though her design is really good and not even in a Gooner way, there's just not too much to say about her, at least solely in the games. I don't remember the name of the short, but I remember there being one animated short that really shed some extra light on her.
What's it called?
Twilight Wings.
Twilight Wings, yeah, Twilight Wings.
And then there was a whole controversy about them animating a Pokemon that wasn't even in the game.
That's funny. But yeah, on her league card, it states that her fans of both her Pokemon battling and modeling industry kind of get conflicted, so I think that's kind of funny. Like, they worry that one industry is going to affect the other, like the true parasocial weirdos they are in real life. I don't know. She's just probably memorized for the wrong reason, but I don't have much to say about Nessa.
The fact that she's the least interesting just goes to show that Galar's gym leaders are pretty interesting.
Alright, unlike the previous gym leader, I actually have a lot to say about the next one, Kabu. And just like Fantina, he apparently doesn't originate from the region you face him in, Galar, but is instead from a whole different region in Hoenn. I really like how Sword and Shield introduces foreign gym leaders to the game, as that's a pretty cool concept that isn't really tapped into in the Pokemon franchise a lot. On top of that, he actually has good battle knowledge, with Kabu actually training his fire-type Pokemon against water types to make them strong. Now, this is not actually how you do that in competitive Pokemon. He would just be EV training if they were, serious about it. But it's good to see that the gym leader is actually taking their job seriously, as that's a rarity in this franchise, surprisingly. In terms of his team composition, he's the first gym leader to introduce a Gigantamax Pokemon in Sinnoh, one of my favorite Pokemon of the Galar region, by the way. And he actually has a pretty threatening team, with Will-O-Wisp cutting the physical stats of your Pokemon. On top of that, his gym challenge itself is pretty unique, with the fact that you have to catch Pokemon, but it's a double battle in which the other trainer attacks your Pokemon, making it much harder to catch it. It's a really creative idea that, again, Game Freak surprisingly hasn't implemented before.
That being said, though, it is a pretty good challenge, and especially his gym actually feeling like a boss fight as the conclusion of the first act of the game.
Yeah. In terms of his league card, it actually is an interview where they just comment on his fighting style and asking why he's been fighting so many weird, obscure Pokemon teams, with them being like, you're incorporating Will-O-Wisp into your team. Whoa, that's crazy. And I'm like, bro, they've been doing that since Gen 3. But yeah, Kabu's a pretty solid gym leader. nothing more to say there. Alright, up next we have another Gunnar-bait character in B. I have no clue why, but I think Pokemon Sword and Shield has the most popular female characters out of any Pokemon game. Like, they are just absolutely obsessed with these girls. But we actually have to talk about the characters, and in terms of it, I actually find it pretty interesting. On B's league sheet, it says that her parents were really strict with her, which is why she has such a stoic personality and barely ever smiles in the game. It also is said that she has honed her judgment skills in battle so that she can remain calm even in the most dire situations. In fact, the only time she really shows emotion is when her Pokemon get hurt, which is pretty adorable, all things considered. In terms of her team composition, she has another Gigantamax Pokemon with Machamp having its really sick design, which I wish was a Mega Evolution, and using Surfetch in the region, which surprisingly enough does not have its signature move Meteor Assault. You'd think they'd have that, but I guess they consider B having that move too much for the 4th gym battle. I don't know, they should up the difficulty in the games, really. Alright, one last fun fact about B that I found on her lead card that was pretty interesting is apparently she's a fan of sweets, which is something pretty rare for someone of her character archetype. I mean, you'd think the martial artist would have a stricter diet, but apparently no. This has hilariously enough been a point of contention with her fans, which, again, having all the gym leaders this region be kind of like super celebrities is a nice touch I have to reinforce. I have no clue why she's so popular among the fanbase, outside of, you know, obvious reasons.
But yeah, in terms of the other gym leaders, I'd rank B among the lower tiers alongside Nessa, because I just didn't find that much depth to her character, I'm gonna be honest. Still a good gym leader, mind you, just not the best in Galar.
Alright, and next up we have our first version exclusive gym leader being Alistair, who masters in ghost types. And you might notice immediately that he's very Majora's Mask-esque. Not only because he's primarily seen wearing a mask, but he reminds me very much of the character, I believe his name is Kiame. I just played the game. And that he is very reserved and will always wear a mask and is very shy and wants to stay inside. Now, for different reasons than the characters in Majora's Mask, but I found the parallel interesting still. And the fact that he's a ghost type user just reminds me a lot of like the Kana section in the game. So I really think that part of Game Freak's inspiration might have been Majora's Mask. When we take a look at his team, we see that it actually fits him very well, with Cursula being a shield exclusive Pokemon, Yamask representing masks, and Gengar representing his potential, like, I don't know, inner rage. I don't really think he has any, it's just a big stretch. And also Mimikyu also being kind of a mask, kind of like he is. And even when we look at his rare league card in the game, that's the only instance you ever see him with his mask off. But the information that they present isn't too different from what you hear from the game. So I just think it's cool that the payoff is finally seeing what he actually looks like. Other than that, I think that Alistair is an interesting character. And yeah, happy I picked Shield.
Alright, next up we have probably one of my favorite gym leaders in the entire region, by far the most interesting one. We have Opal, who I think is the actual oldest gym leader, besides Price from Johto. What makes her such an interesting gym leader is apparently she's been doing it for 70 years, and she's trying to scout out a new gym leader in Bede, which is something we haven't seen before in Pokemon. The idea that these gym leaders have to retire and choose a new lineage to move on with their life is a pretty interesting concept that I feel like should have been explored a long time ago. In terms of her personality and character, she kind of represents the fairy type in the same way I said for Valerie and Kalos, where she's not all sunshine and rainbows and sweet and goody
Like how fairies tend to get portrayed in modern pop culture.
Instead, she represents the more darker side of fairies, with her having kind of a snappy attitude, being quite aggressive, and even her team reflecting that with the fact that she has a Mawile that is super aggressive with Crunch and Draining Kiss, and Air Slash Togekiss, who unfortunately doesn't have Serene Grace, but I guess that would be a little too hard for the player. She once again also has a Gigantamax Pokemon.
Unk still got it. Anyway, one extra thing I wanted to point out is Sword and Shield does start out with great gym puzzles, and they kind of fall off later. I really like the idea of hers being a quiz, kind of like Sabrina's, except being executed differently in the battles. I just think that a pure buff or debuff was a little bit of missed potential, but considering she is easily my favorite gym leader in this game, I don't really care too much.
Although the questions she has in the gym are quite questionable, they range from stuff such as, what is Fairy weak to what is the breakfast I had today from that one trainer. I know you know what I'm talking about. It's just very bizarre. But yeah, Opal's one of the best gym leaders in Galar. everyone agrees on that. Time to move on. Alright, up next, I think we have the best gym leader relationship out of any Pokemon game ever. And I know that sounds like a bit of an exaggeration, but I mean it. The amount of actual subtextual conflict and engaging rivalry between Melanie and Gordy is really good. Like, apparently Melanie is Gordy's mother, and she wanted him to follow in her footsteps of being an Ice-type gym leader. But Gordy, being, you know, an independent human being, chose the Rock-type because he flies with the type, I guess, more often. And it's heavily implied that Melanie did not like this decision, as you can see from their league card art where Gordy is looking frustratingly angry away from the camera while Melanie is in a seemingly mocking tone, gesturing at the camera. It's pretty interesting, especially in the fact that in both of their cards, it references a conflict they had in the past in which they butted heads, and the victor who came out on top was apparently Gordy, with this straining their relationship even further.
Now, personally, I never read their conflict I never read it as conflicty. I more so saw it as Gordon just kind of wanting some more independence. That being said, though, I think it's really interesting how we actually have two different characters that are both game exclusive, and yet the crux of their story is told through having those two different versions. It kind of reminds me of Black and White in that way, but I don't have too much more to say about them.
Another thing about Melanie that I found was pretty interesting is she looks really soft and bubbly on the outside, but in her lore she's apparently really strict and cruel as a coach, having her trainers in her gym being leaving non-stop, and the trainers that do exist in her gym being apparently really strong. I can't tell, the ice type sucks, so they probably get mowed through by the player, but that's actually pretty good, like, thematic undertones. Having the sweet, daintily lady be secretly ruthless is a quite dark turn for Pokemon, I gotta say. And Gordy, like the other characters in Galar, also has some text to his character, with the fact that apparently he's a chick magnet, with most of the trainers in his gym being young, attractive female trainers, which I just thought that was a fun touch to his character. But yeah, these two are definitely my favorite in Galar, and some of the best writing for the gym leaders up until this point.
Okay, coming up next, we have a pretty different gym. We have Piers. Now, personally, I like Piers. I don't really like him, but that's more than most people can say, for very good reasons that I'll let Plexi tear into later.
Okay, can I go?
No.
Wait, what? You don't tell me no! I go when I want to, and I gotta say, Piers is one of the worst gym leaders in all of Pokemon history. One, I like how he's the primary example people use when they say that this series has no voice acting. I mean, what is this absolutely embarrassing scene where he's apparently singing, and Team Yell is supposed to be cheering him on? I mean, they sound like he's booing him. And I would too. I mean, this guy is so lame. Then it comes to the fact that he's a complete stuck-up who's like, I actually don't want to become a part of the gym challenge in like a power spot so that we can do Gigantamaxing. I'm just going to stay in my own town. And then he wonders why his town becomes a dead zone. Like, bro, you did that to yourself. Apparently on his trainer card, he wants to replace Marty as like the gym leader for his gym, so that's why he invented Team Yell to basically harass her and be her army of simps. That's pretty sore. And then you have the fact that he apparently wants to be like a strongest dark type gym leader, but all his Pokemon do not run any competitive moves on his team. Pretty sure his Malamar has mostly physical moves, which if you know Malamar, he's like a special attacker. Yeah, I just don't like Piers just because of the laziness that went into his gym design, and it could have been one of the coolest gym battles. I mean, imagine you're in a rogue town where you have to buy shady medicine from all the gangsters around. You get attacked by merchants every single time you refuse to, and they lower your Pokemon stats, or I don't know, anything, just anything with the concept of a rogue town. It could have been so cool. Also, he's the only gym leader that doesn't use Gigantamaxing.
Okay, however, I do like that he's also, I think, the only gym leader in this game that takes actions during both of the climaxes involving Zacian and Zamazenta and Eternatus. Either order, but...
Yeah, I forgot about that. He does help out with Chairman Rose, who's... I don't want to get into how bad the story is, but yeah, he does help out with that.
Different video.
I'm gonna stop global warming for happening in 1,000 years.
We have to act now, and my target destination is a stadium full of people.
He accelerate. That's like the most extreme example of accelerationism. Jesus Christ. And last but not least, we have Raihan, the most horrific gym leader in this region, even though he has a 10-0 record against Leon. But the thing that makes Raihan so unique that me and many others pointed out is that he's the first gym leader that doesn't just have a type specialty, but actually has a theming, with his team being specializing in the sandstorm weather effect. I feel like more gym leaders going forward should do this thing where they just have themings instead of type combination specialists, because we've seen that so many times throughout these entire regions. Another cool thing about Raihan is that he's very charismatic. I really like his animations that he did in the gym battle and gym challenge, as well as the fact that he's a streamer, so they had to put a lot of effort into his character and personality. I like how he's basically posing like a madman in every one of his photos. And also he's another black gym leader, so that's a plus. Galar has a lot of black characters this region, which I feel like is nice representation.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the more memorable gym leaders from this game. And I have to get my one huge complaint out of the way. What was that gym, bro? You walk in and you fight him. There's not even an optional trainer. There's not even a challenge. You just fight him.
I feel really hypocritical now that I mentioned that Piers has literally just straight line simulator.
Piers at least had gym, fights before the gym.
Listen, Raihan
has a room.
Raihan has so much aura farming, he's like, I don't need other gym trainers, it's just me.
Regardless, though, I think that the whole streamer archetype was good here, and I think it was also a great framework for what they did with Iono, the next generation. But yeah, Plexi got pretty much all my thoughts about Raihan out of the way. I think it's really cool that even though he's meant to be a dragon-type gym leader, he focuses more on the Sandstorm build.
And he's actually pretty hard because of that. I mean, it's kind of dumb how these gym challenges are like, we're going to test your skill as a player, and we're going to have you just fight against one typing so that you can just spam the same moves against them. That would really be a good challenge to test your skill.
Yeah, like you can't even come here with a fairy type because you get obliterated with Duraludon.
Yep, and that's just good game design.
And last up, because I actually played the DLC, we wanted to quickly mention Avery, Clara, and Peony. Now, again, in canon, they are gym leaders, or at least training to be for Avery and Clara's case, but it's not really shown too well in the gameplay that they have all 18 types as gym leaders, rather. I do really like Avery and Clara's character arcs. I know mean person becoming nice is nothing new, but I think they handled it pretty well. And Peony's just a lot of fun to be around. It makes you actually want to... I feel like the low-quality PNGs every time you unlock new legendaries with him is intentional. Because he's like trying to gas something up when it's like, it should be cool. You're like hunting down legendaries, even though it's so little effort put into it by himself. Anyway, their fights are fun, but I don't really have too much to say about them. I do really like Galarian Slowbro that both Avery and Clara use.
Overall, for being one of my least favorite regions of Pokemon, it has by far the strongest cast of gym leaders, right under Unova in my opinion. It is clear that Game Freak put a lot of thought and effort into their designs, personalities, and appeal, given the fact that they were meant to be celebrities in this region.
Overall, Sword and Shield is a pretty bland game in both of our opinions, but we also think the game is pretty heavily carried by the characters, not just the gym leaders.
Yeah, the character writing is surprisingly strong this generation, despite the nonsensical plot.
Character writing is that we need to act now.
So yeah, that's it for Galar region. I want to know your thoughts in the comments below. What do y'all think of the gym leaders, as well as any opinions on other characters of Pokemon Sword and Shield? Do you think Game Freak missed the mark, or do you think they have some of the best characterization and writing in the series? Tell us down below. Until then, I'll see you next time for the final region of Pokemon, Paldea, and its nefarious gym leaders, as we go into Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So we're finally here to the final region of Pokemon, the Paldea region. Probably the most interesting region for me personally, because I actually haven't played these games at all. That being said, the gym leaders were one of the very few aspects of these games that I decided to check out. Because as usual, though Game Freak might stumble in their game design, their character designs were absolutely stunning. From what I've read online, the general writing of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is a lot higher quality than the past games, even rivaling Pokemon Black and White in some aspects. I already knew about some twists coming in, such as the regional professors secretly being AI robots, the whole twist with Penny secretly being the villain of Team Star and you having to defeat her in the end, and the entire Arven side quest, which was probably the most emotional in the game. But all of those are sadly not the gym leaders of this region, and the gym leaders in this game are actually pretty decent, I'm not gonna lie. I will say that the character designs at this point for gym leaders are a lot less on the nose in terms of what their team types are. The only ones I could really find out off the bat was Larry, because he was the only normal looking one in a cast full of colorful characters, and Grusha, surprisingly. All the other gym leaders in this region just looked like average everyday people, which I guess could have been a deliberate choice on Game Freak's part, trying to make the world more immersive and all. But enough with the yapping, it's time to get into the final gym leaders in the entire Pokemon franchise. Alright, starting off with Katie, the first gym leader of Paldea, and wow, this is another starting bug gym. It's weird how we've had a bug gym for almost every game since Black and White. Although her look and design gives off the vibe of a fairy type in my opinion, with her doing the whole baker-maid thing. She actually owns a bakery called Patisserie Soapberry, and she tries to feed all of the other gym leaders sweets even when they don't want to, as shown by the lead card dialogue with her and Grusha. Apparently she was taught her baking and cooking skills by Kofu, one of the other gym leaders. Her sweet but anachronistic personality stands out a lot in these games, as you actually see the gym leaders tend to have, let's say, not the most positive feelings around her. Characters like Rita comment on her battle hardiness, despite the fact that she has the weakest team in the region. She actually kind of takes this advice to heart, as during the Paldean League, she actually comments on her defeat and says that she's going to have to train harder, pushing her gym to be a little more difficult than what it is. I really like this development, as again, it shows that the gym leaders are actual living human beings that just aren't okay with losing all the time. But yeah, Katie's a solid first gym leader, a really nice subversive take on the bug type, and a pleasant surprise with her whole bakery gimmick. Though it is a shame that for her team she doesn't use a Fido or Dash Bun and terrestrializes that into bug type. Seriously, for Baker, it is surprising how she doesn't use any food-based Pokemon in the game. Another example of how I say gym leaders should be based off of themes instead of just types. On to the next gym leader, Bracius, and before I begin, can I just say, man, why does Paldea not have level scaling? I mean seriously, look at his Pokemon. This is almost more pathetic than the Kalos gym leaders. Having only 2 moves? Seriously? Although I do like the touch that they make Sudowoodo actually a grass-type Pokemon, instead of being like the fake tree gimmick it's always had. A nice little tongue-in-cheek reference there. Bracius, like Bird from Pokemon Black and White, is an artist and a gym leader. He's close friends with Hassel, who is actually the art teacher in the academy you go to. What I find interesting about him though is that his art that he specializes in isn't actually just paintings and 2D stuff. He makes statues, his most iconic being the Surrender Souffleur that you see around the town. Another interesting thing about Bracius is that apparently he got deathly ill once during his artist block. He was almost considering giving up being an artist if it wasn't for Hassel snapping him out of his rut. One thing that I do like about the Paldean region gym leaders is that they have far more relatable writing around them than any other gym leaders in the entire franchise. And I'm not just saying that for Larry, I mean their dialogue and their actions during the story just feels like normal everyday people rather than these larger-than-life cartoon characters. Stuff like Bracius having extreme artist block, or Iono's whole streamer gimmick, just ground the world in a way that I don't think any other Pokemon story has up until this point. It's really good. And even though Bracius might be my least favorite among the Paldean region gym leaders, he's still pretty competently written. I guess that just goes to show how high quality these characters really are. Okay, on to one of the most popular gym leaders in the region, and possibly of all time, we have Iono. Now, Iono is a very polarizing character. You either love her or you hate her. Her whole streamer gimmick can come off as a really cute and clever nod to modern pop culture, or it can come off as just an annoying gimmick that makes her character feel dated. It's really up to the viewer. Me personally, I think Iono is a very gimmicky character that is done exceptionally well. She somehow captures all the eccentric values and tropes regarding streaming life, without coming off as an out-of-touch person's idea of what streamers talk like. She's very energetic and animated, and you can see that in everything from her dialogue to the way she even animates in battle, unable to stop moving. She also has some hidden depth to her, with her constantly chasing views instead of what is actually artistically valuable. And this not only bothers her, but also the characters around her, as most of the other gym leaders want nothing to do with her. Her conversation with Grusha cements this, as he even states that he was initially a fan of hers, but that he misses her old content when she was more artistic and risky with it. Iona's response to this comment? Simply stating that this is the reason she doesn't read comments anymore, because she literally can't handle the negativity. I know we're not breaking any new ground here whatsoever, but it's still pretty good writing. It makes Iona feel like a realistic character, despite her larger-than-life persona. As to why people hate her so much, I can't exactly put my finger on why. I think it's a mixture of her obnoxious personality with the fact that in the trailer she debuted in, it didn't reveal that much information except for her, which put a sour taste in people's mouth. Plus, apparently her voice in the anime is really annoying. In terms of her team composition, her ace is Miss Magius, which is always a plus because, I'm biased. But they're still not giving her Pokemon a full set of 4 moves. Like, guys, the player at this point should have almost evolved Pokemon at this point. Are we still in Kalos? What's up with the difficulty? Ah well, Iona's still an excellent gym leader of this region. I can definitely see why she's a fan favorite. On to Kofu, the water-type gym leader of this region, and I've just gotta say, this dude has one of the worst character designs in all of Pokemon. There, I said it. I do not like his wavy facial hair. But his personality makes up for it. He's the chef that taught Katie, as I said a while back, and apparently he only uses the most high-quality ingredients, so much so that he'll actually sob if he can't get them, as you see in his cutscene and gym challenge. I gotta say, not much is interesting about this guy. He apparently loses his wallet a lot, but that's about the only interesting characteristic I could find for him. I feel like I'm turning into a broken record here, but he still doesn't have 4 moves on his Pokemon. I do like the Veluza though, as it's apparently a very edible Pokemon in this region. But yeah, you can tell the gym leaders that Game Freak put the most effort into and those that they didn't. I mean, Kofu has by far the least amount of league cards in the game, and I think in one of them, Katie even fat shamed him a bit. Like, wow, this guy has got it bad. I don't have much more to say about this guy. Time to move on. Here comes probably the other most popular gym leader from this region, and Larry. The most relatable guy ever. I mean, he too is depressed about his 9 to 5 and crushing sole existence under capitalism. Okay, all jokes aside, I do genuinely think Larry is a well-designed gym leader. They play with his over-the-top normalness, with the fact that he's hiding in plain sight within the gym, and the fact that he turns his head in his gym card as to not give his identity away to the player. Pretty clever stuff, I gotta say. His gym challenge is also pretty memorable, with you basically having to become a detective for all of the guests in the restaurant, if you don't choose to brute force your way through it, that is. Also, despite the bored exterior he gives off in all his artwork, he's actually a pretty funny guy, I'm not gonna lie. Reading some of the dialogue from his league cards, with his interaction with Poppy in particular, is absolutely hilarious. They absolutely snapped with these, I gotta say. But yeah, Larry continues the trend of the Paldean gym leaders being the most relatable characters in the series. I mean, here you have this guy who is probably overworked and underpaid, despite the fact that I don't think that there's any rent that you need to pay in Pokemon, but we'll ignore all those implications. His job is as some generic businessman for the Paldean League, and he has to manage his grueling hours between being a gym leader and his vague league work. His gym battle team comprises a Kamala, a level 35 the Dunsparce, and a Staraptor that terraforms into a normal type. Yeah, one thing about these teams is that they are not thematic at all with the characters unlike previous regions, which I will say is a slight downgrade. But overall, I think the good writing for the gym leaders more than makes up for it individually, as shown here by Larry. Up next we have Rhyme, the gym leader who's sisters with the character Time at the Academy, and oh boy, we have another black gym leader. That makes it, what at this point, 4 times in a row? Good job, Game Freak. But Rhyme's an interesting character as she canonically introduces the concept of rap to the Pokemon universe, something that was only sung in the anime songs at the end of each episode. Apparently her rapping is so powerful and potent that it can bring living things back from the dead. This is actually a very interesting take on the whole ghost-type gym leader thing, as I did not expect them to take it this far. I mean, she's even called the MC of RIP. Nice play on words. In terms of her team composition, she still doesn't have 4 moves, but we won't talk about that. What I do find interesting is her Houndstone, which if you read in her bio, it says that she raps about her lost puppy, which is what got her into rap in the first place. Could this Houndstone be the berry Pokemon that she was sad about in her past? That would be pretty cool if it was. In most of her League Club dialogue, she has a very sassy personality when she talks to the other gym leaders. Her roasting Katie for having absolutely 0 rapping skills, I mean seriously Katie, what is this? And her trying to push Grusha into going to the sushi restaurant because apparently the food is so bad it might leave people deadly sick. I guess her ghost type specialty was flaring up there. But yeah, Rhyme is just a pretty fun character. Nice design, nice personality, and really cool gym challenge. On to by far the most attractive gym leader of this region, we have Tulip, the psychic type gym leader. Immediately off the bat, one interesting thing about her character is apparently her and Iono stream a lot, which I just gotta see what those streams look like. They gotta have some absolutely wild comments in the Twitch chat if it was our reality. Second, apparently Tulip is very busy with her having over 7 businesses. Like, what the heck? She's friends with Dendra of the Academy, which is pretty interesting given the fact that Dendra is a fighting type specialist, so you'd think they clash a lot. But no, apparently Dendra enlisted the help of her to help with their ESP exercises. One thing that's interesting about Tulip's gym challenge is apparently the loser has to do whatever the winner wants. Whatever they want, you say? Oh, wow. In terms of her team composition, it's the stereotypical beauty Pokemon that you'd expect, although I'm surprised that they still don't have 4 moves at this point. The Terra type Florgeist into a Psychic type is a neat little detail though, as if you come with the Poison type expecting to hit it for super effective, the player's in for a nasty surprise. Overall, I'd say that Tulip's gym is a pretty underwhelming penultimate one, as her team is still pretty weak and lackluster at this point in the game, and her gym challenge is shockingly bad, like up there with peers in terms of how much it sucks. Ah well, moving on. And last, but certainly not least, the final gym leader in all of Pokemon, and easily my favorite gym leader in all of Paldea, we have Grusha, the Ice-type gym leader. First off, before I begin, I just want to point out something that Paldea does with its character designs, and that's the fact that Game Freak was leaning a lot more into gender nonconformity with these character designs. I'm talking about people like Grusha, Rika, and even Penny to a certain extent. It shows that the character designers are really looking outward in terms of inspiration, and not just recycling the same old stereotypical anime aesthetics that we're used to. Once again, this is why Pokemon's character designs look so appealing and aesthetically pleasing. They look outside of anime in order to get their inspiration. On to Grusha himself though, I find him very interesting, as he was a world-renowned snowboarding athlete. The second best of all time, which is pretty crazy. Although, like most professional athletes, a bad injury left him crippled and unable to do the sport ever again. It's unstated what this injury is, but it's clear that it's had a huge effect on his personality, as he has a very timid and closed-off demeanor to him. But over the course of the game, you see him start to develop and open up to others. He has a huge fear over his reputation as a gym leader, as he feels like it's the only value he has after, his bad accident. Again, extremely relatable for someone like him, as he's in a position of extreme prestige. I already mentioned his interactions with Iono, but I also think his interaction with Bracius is pretty telling of his character. The fact that he questions Bracius on whether or not he fears he'll lose his talent forever, only for Bracius to fire back with his own personal experiences, with the fact that he was deathly ill and what that did to him on a mental level, saying how he overcame it and he doesn't have artist block anymore, and that he feels like it's something similar to what Grusha is going through. To which Grusha actually gets angry at him, which I feel is an overreaction, though very human, once again adding to the superb writing that the Paldean gym leaders have. This is by far one of my favorite League Club interactions in the entire game. His team composition, once again, is nothing to write home about, with him having a Frostmoth, a Pokemon with one of the worst type combinations in the game, with his most interesting Pokemon being the Setaten on his team, because apparently the Pokemon that caused his accident was a Cetadel, a Pokemon that he had to swerve out of the way of in his path. The fact that he's actually using the Pokemon that caused his grief, the Pokemon of his traumatic injury, is pretty thematic, I gotta say. Easily the best gym leader of the Paldean region, and with that, we are finally done with every single Pokemon gym leader in the Pokemon franchise. Thank you so much everyone who stayed this long in this series. It's taken me a long time to compile all 75 of the gym leaders in this series. Running through all their background information, seeing their teams, and analyzing my personal feelings after playing through all the games, it was a pretty tough process, I'm not gonna lie. But it was a fun one, I shall say. Like I said at the very beginning, all the way back at Kanto, the gym leaders are brilliantly designed boss fights for the Pokemon franchise. They're great as milestones for testing the player's mechanical knowledge and game depth. They're an excellent addition to the world building and character writing of the games, and above all else, they have some of the best character designs in gaming in my opinion. On screen right now, I'm going to be flashing all of the gym leaders I reviewed and which order I would tier them in, as well as the individual regions themselves and how I tiered them, and the individual gym leaders within the region, just so we're clear. This video series was a monumental undertaking, and I hope you all enjoyed it very well. Please be sure to tell me what your favorite gym leaders are in the comments down below, as I'm sure I'm going to get some heartfelt, hilarious, and downright insightful information about these characters. The more the better. As always, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed, share with a friend, and I'll catch you next time on the Plexi Tier channel. Peace.